This conference will now be recorded.
At 6:02, we have a quorum present. Is there anyone for public comment?
I don't see anybody logged in and nobody indicated.
Okay. All right, we will pass over the approval of the minutes. We will have those hopefully next month. Then we will go right to the treasurer's report, please.
Okay, you can see here on the summary report, the net line green, again, favorable is up. So green is above the magenta line, meaning we're favorable to plan as of this month. 95,000 plus or minus, slightly down from last month, but still very good. You can see most of that is in expense control. If you look at the next slide. Sorry, so revenue is represents roughly 9,000 of that. Again, favorable. You can see we've been bouncing around a little bit, but generally just slightly favorable. And the levy is still unfavorable cumulative for the year. And expense, you see the bulk of it. 85K, you get there. Somehow my headings
They're not showing.
disappeared, but
Yeah, it says it's the meeting copy.
cumulative line, it's the black line, it's 85,000 plus or minus. So the bulk of it is in expense control, netting 95,000 favorable year to date cumulative. And you'll see the fund balances are on plan, remain on plan. You want to pull up the vouchers? And touch on any changes?
Sure. Okay, we updated payroll. We added an invoice for tennis instruction. We added Freeland Ace Hardware, gas and lube products. Another invoice for summer programming, paddle sport camps. And Les Schwab Tire Center, some tire parts. An umpire invoice for the adult co-ed softball league. Another item for paint supplies for graffiti, and you can see that's happening a lot. Another umpire invoice for the adult co-ed softball league. We added our Microsoft Online Services, purchase from the Power Wash store of elephant snot graffiti remover. I just put that in there. That's actually what it's called.
That's stuff as well.
Yeah, that's, and obviously, again, on the same theme, we're needing that. Adobe Creative Cloud, Amazon purchased of flagging for the Chum Run, and an office chair and wireless mouse. You'll note that PERS has been removed. We'll touch on that a little bit in the staff report. A couple of other items were also removed due to this was just becoming a really huge voucher batch. Updated the figures for deferred compensation, an invoice for another summer program, nature camp instruction, and another invoice for umpire fees. Oops. Right. Umpire fees. And an updated payroll tax liability. And that is it.
Any questions on any of the vouchers or the updates?
Yeah. So the archive social, 40
Oh, yes.
million, that's the 40% increase.
Yes. Yes.
Was there any advance notice of that? Or
A
did you
little
apply?
bit, yeah. So I had started pursuing other social media platforms for archiving. And so I did get another quote for less. However, not sure that it's worth the cost of implementing the change at this time. But, so I have one other quote, but, so I'll postpone that one a little bit.
So did we just,
I
is
pulled it.
Archive Social, are they like a tiered pricing and have we like gone into the next size of what we're archiving?
No, it was straight. They sent a notice saying that there were increases coming because of costs.
Okay. Endurus, 335, 683, that's an annual.
Yep.
Harbor Plumbing for 4,000, fixture replacement and service.
Restrooms at Castle Park Playground, sink replacements, valves.
Vandalism or age?
Age.
So we know that.
And I forgot. Oh, go ahead.
Heritage Bank, 3,029 for storage building orderly payment. What's storage?
That's Tom's building.
Oh. Need a better name.
Sorry, but I forgot to open my minutes for taking notes.
And the last one I had was Mickey's Trophy Shop for 1195.75. I wish Sky was here to speak to it, but we need to do something different next year,
It's pretty expensive. It's gotten,
considering most of them are still sitting in this office along. So just, I don't, next year. Anyone else? All right, so our total's 185,670 and 42 cents. Did I read that right, Carrie?
185, 670, and 42 cents.
If there are no other questions, I'll make a motion to approve the vouchers from the M&O fund in an amount of 185, 670, and 42 cents.
I'll second that motion.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the voucher list in the amount of $185,670.42. All those in favor say aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Mr. Aye.
Jake,
Jennifer, aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it, the motion passes, and the vouchers are approved. Thank you, Matt. Okay, moving on to the staff report.
All right. Well, first of all, excited to be here tonight. More excited to be here regularly in a couple of weeks. Staff report is mine tonight. There's no program report. Facility and grounds, the Max Welton Trail signage is in progress. The space has been cleared, which is great. As alluded to earlier, graffiti's become a real issue. It's, from what I understand, worse than it's ever been. Police are aware. It's just happening in this area. I don't know that there's an action step, but it's been, I think, a lot really taxing for Tom and his crew to continually. It's at the boat launches. It's in the park. I'm guessing it's around other areas too, but we're feeling it pretty strong. So perhaps when they go back to school, if it's kids, that'll mediate some of this, perhaps. But that is an issue. No action step, just an issue. Business report, business manager's report. Carrie is working on onboarding me, and that's going well. Learning a little bit more every day. So Carrie's being very patient as she's trying to transition her knowledge to me, and I'm trying to learn it. So it's going well. As you've been notified, we've received notice from the county, Island County, regarding the termination of our lease agreement, effective December 21st of next year. So we've started just internally brainstorming different things. Obviously, we've got a measure on the ballot in November, which will remedy that problem, but we're talking about other options too, just in contingency.
all right, you threw out the doghouse, so I read the memo. Is that you, Carrie? That's the potential.
Yeah. with sprucing up lots of,
We'll
it
see.
actually has AC right now, so.
Upgrade. It's an upgrade. Might be the next board meeting at this rate.
Keep the rooms.
Staff have made multiple attempts to connect with the Washington Fish and Wildlife regarding issues at the lakes. Been unsuccessful. They reached out again this week, trying to make contact, but hearing crickets at this point. So that's something we have to be a little more aggressive with.
I did get contact information for someone maybe a step above, so I think that would be.
I did try, and I did not get anywhere.
No response.
Just basically saying like not, I can't address that,
It's not-
different, yeah, like, good luck.
Offices will be closed August 25th because we have an overlap of vacation between Carrie and Sky. Also worth noting, it'll be noted later, but Carrie is on a well-deserved vacation from the 18th to the 27th, so she will be off grid. And even though I'm not in the office, I do have the cell phone, the email, text me. Don't hesitate to reach out. So I need Carrie needs that week to recover and rest and not be bothered, but I can be bothered all at once. So feel free to reach out during that time. Overall costs, as we mentioned earlier, are increasing significantly for many of the budget lines. Social media that we talked about earlier being a highlight is up 40%. As Carrie mentioned, she's explored other options that are, it's still in the queue to be discussed a little bit more. Much work on the various projects have been done by all the commissioners. From a staff perspective, thank you. In planning for the staff turnover and preserving institutional memory, please provide the files and documents to the district so they're easily accessible to the staff and we can coordinate the digital file transfers. The audit, Carrie mentioned, oh, sorry, please.
I read that 3 times and I still went, but
So different committees and different projects, different people are working on them, right? And so the like spreadsheets or designs or whatever are not necessarily in our shared, our files. So they're like Matt has some good files and he has made it accessible to us, although I need to get new permissions. But anyways, and so like when I was trying to pick up things when Doug left, it was really hard for me to find documents because they were in other people's hands. And so if there's a way for us to get links or access in some way to make it easier for us to, if someone leaves, and it's the main thing, to get that information.
so maybe I'm just brainstorming on the spot, but now that we all have the SharePoint access.
Yeah.
Maybe Sky or someone could create a file that's just to be filed and we can put stuff there and Carrie as business manager can be in charge of making heads or tails how we keep that library.
Makes a lot of sense. And I think too, when I read that, I kind of read that as, just as I said, Carrie's kind of onboarding me. Everyone in this room's been doing extra work for the last 7-8 months that was Doug's work. And so that's part of the transition too, is starting to give me back the job that you hired me to do. So that process is an ongoing process. So I think that's how I read that too. But
Yeah.
Carrie mentioned earlier that the DRS numbers were taken out of the budget. And she can elaborate more if you have questions, but the audit happened, the regular audit, and there was some things pointed out in the audit that caused us to change how we do this. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit? It was positive. It wasn't a bad audit. I thought it was a few little things.
Make changes.
Yeah.
So I'll just go over them as quickly as I can. Let me know if you have any questions. It's hard to summarize some of these because you don't know what our processes are. But the main thing is I want you to know how it will impact how we do things a little bit, how it impacts you guys. So the item one, this pertains to how we were reporting hourly employees into our retirement system. We were reporting them as when they were paid rather than when they had earned it. And probably from the beginning of us being involved in PERS. So we can change that. And there will be some adjustments to be made. The way that it impacts you guys and our processes is that we normally pay PERS retirement at this voucher batch, like right now. And the reason for that is that historically, when we moved to doing vouchers twice a month, there was the wish that we would defer large payments to the voucher batch where you guys were approving it at the moment. And so that is one of the items that we would save to do. We would make sure that we would do it now so that you could approve it before we made the payment, rather than the voucher batch that we do at the beginning of the month. I know this is tedious. The impact to you is that we will start doing it in the first voucher batch, which was not our practice because we would save those large expenditures until the board meeting batch. And it may mean that because of just how we do things, it may possibly involve a late payment. So let's see, so hours not reported out. So we were using a set number of hours for reporting salary employees. I had already clued in that that needed to be changed and started changing that last December. Looks like there was an error back in 2014. That will be corrected. And when Doug left, it took me a while to get around to removing him from the retirement system for us. Questions?
And I'll just say, I participated in the audit report before that, when they call it the exit conference of the audit with the auditor, Christy Evans from, she's a compliance analyst.
Yeah.
And her biggest point of feedback, she understood that these things were the intricacies of the workings of a district like ours, and that, in a small district like ours, it's very easy for these things to get, very, very easy for you to get sideways with some of the vagaries of the system. So this was a chance for us to upgrade the way we're doing things, to correct these errors from the past. That was the perspective that she had. And she was unequivocal in her appreciation for the work that Carrie did to respond to questions and inquiries, requests for information through the audit, and was complimentary of the district's, kind of organizationally, because of the response that Carrie demonstrated. So it was a completely positive exit interview, saying we'll get through this and get through these corrections and we'll have a better system. So thank you to Carrie for
Right,
the.
well done, thank you.
Yeah, it was good information. And, it was our first time ever being audited on this. And so it was good.
Well, 2014, yeah, they got
Yeah.
something from 9 years ago.
And 3 items that are.
Yeah.
No.
Is that because of the cycle? Aren't they on a regular auditing cycle though? Why?
It was really like they do like a random spot. It was our turn to win the lottery.
Oh,
It's
Yeah.
very,
So it's very random.
very random. Yeah, it's not any sort of cycle. And,
interesting.
yeah.
They were on the island.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
all right, Gary and I had a conversation about the 2024 budget this week. There's some factors that make it a little different, including the potential for a new lease, property acquisition, the timing of future bond ballot items, the timing of being invoiced for ballot items, when that happens, grant reimbursements, inflation. We talked about starting with just kind of the low hanging fruit. We're going to kind of build the foundation of the budget, doing the stuff we know, and then just kind of tackle the bigger issues as we go forward. So just know that work has started, because that's coming pretty quick as summer is coming close to an end. Carrie is discussing wanting to change how we compile the board packets to a single document with links when possible, something we may talk about more going forward. Just having some inefficiencies, trying to make it a little better. Public meetings for the pool design, still need a location. I know there's been some emails going around talking about that as a possibility. Apparently the would-be telephones and available. So we need a room, and I know the size of the room was a question.
So would be telecom.
Telecom, sorry.
Correct?
They're not available. They haven't started opening it up to the public yet.
I saw the email and I thought about, I mean, the school district has plenty of meeting areas, but
I think maybe the commons, I mean, it would be
Interesting.
free.
we could.
Yeah. Just a note there, I've jumbled dates and what those dates are for. So first of all, that September 11th should be September 7th, I think. We'll verify that with Paul. And then Matt and I were discussing whether that was intended to be the voter info open houses or whether that was supposed to be the pool design open houses.
Yeah, there's 2 of each. So 2 that Eric and I will represent as factual information sessions for the bond, and then 2 that will lead as a collective committee with ARC present to talk about, get feedback on the design. So 4 total meetings. We just got to sort out what dates are which.
Do we have the October date yet?
No.
We think it's the 19th.
Yeah, those are just when we did those past voter info. That was just for reference. We did it mid and late October.
And remember, the mailing date for ballots, I think is the 21st of October. So the first date that someone would have a ballot in their hands is, I think, the 23rd of October. So that's the planning. That's the planning window.
And I'm not remembering the statistic, but most people vote in that
I think
first
it's,
4 or 5 days.
I
of
think
receipt.
it's not most, I think it's like somewhere between 30 and 50%
Okay.
vote in the first 7 days or something like that. Jim Nelson has those numbers, but it's something like that. So yeah, the word needs to be out by the 23rd of October to get to every voter.
So, I'm sorry, I think I'm a little confused. So the 11th and or the 7th, the 7th and the September 7th and October 19th are about the design?
No, we think that we're confused right now. We have 4 meetings we have to schedule, we
Got
have
it.
only 2 dates out there. So we got to get 2 more dates, and then we got to subdivide them to put, the October 19th is for sure us.
Right.
Are you
that
sure?
Makes sense.
Yep.
It felt like it was the pool
And then-
design one.
There
but-
should be an
Yes.
earlier.
Oh, yeah, Eric,
That's
what do
what
you
I
think?
heard, yeah.
That
That's
those
what I
2
would-
dates, September 7th,
So again,
not October 19th?
we'll sort it out.
Clarify
There's
that.
4 dates we got to get, and we got to get 4 venues or the same venue.
Yeah.
So, and ARC has told us they'll support all 4 of them. Jim Nelson is going to come to the voter education, the factual information ones that Eric and I do. He'll answer questions about the bond.
So is it meant to have 2 meetings that are specifically to get public feedback about the design?
Yep.
And then 2 meetings are about the voter information?
On the bond.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
And so those will be getting out of me and Eric with Jim Nelson answering the technical questions about interest rates and millage and repayment schedule and all the bond issuances, all that kind of stuff. And then the design meeting will be ARC and talking about color palette and landscaping, that kind of thing.
I think where we got the dates a little confused internally was at your last meeting, you guys talked about having a comp plan mini retreat on the 11th. And I think that's when we put it out on the 11th.
I guess.
As the pool design, that's where we got that backwards. So, and I you'll see down later that we have the comp plan workshop on the 11th. So, yeah, so that was internally, we were just throwing too many dates around, and I think, so. I'm gonna
Lots of
blame me.
meetings.
Yeah, you can blame me for at least 6 months for any mistake that happens. So,
So have our informational meeting, you guys are gonna be out after the design. Has Art put together like a real world cost of what it's gonna cost to maintain it?
So the cost to maintain it has come from the previous estimate and the feasibility because that group of contractors had operators in it. So they gave a schedule that they worked out with Doug based on his full experience. And that table is in the feasibility study, number of lifeguards, number of people in the front, number of hours, cost, labor cost per hour, that kind of thing. So Doug, that exists. That was done when the feasibility was done probably 9, 10 months ago. These guys are not operators. They're just construction costs. And that's what they're coming to talk about tonight. Construction costs, commissioning costs. And then once ribbon's cut, they're out of it.
Yeah, I'm just wanting to take into account inflation and it's in everything, and it's better to have real world costs upfront with the public about if this is approved, it's gonna cost them X amount more to maintain. I mean, I brought this up a year or two ago that previously we had M&O and the construction bond run together. One didn't pass, didn't happen. So if you build it and the people don't fund it, there sits an empty building. So I just think that it needs to be completely clear to the public, because I'm answering lots of questions out there and I can't answer a lot of them because I don't know.
Yeah, so
And if I don't know, public clearly does it.
Yeah, so we put for the parks website page, there's a section that says, this is how much it's gonna cost to build it. And then there's a section right after it that says, this is how much it's gonna cost to operate and maintain it. So that's the primary place that exists. So try to
let
put
me
that
ask you
right
this, what's it gonna cost to go swim? And I can't answer that question.
So
What are you gonna charge?
he's also got that table in the feasibility study. The normal day rate at all the pools around here is $6 a day. Day rate. And then
I'm just saying, at these informational meetings, it would be smart to have all that stuff there because people aren't gonna go fish through our website.
That's the idea of the information needs.
Yeah, I mean, it just needs to be out there and it needs to be clear. I think there's a perception that it's kind of free. Paying for it and you get to just go use it. It's cheap, and so just feedback on it.
And there'd be another M&O levy down the road.
So what we say is that it doesn't make sense to put out an M&O levy when the construction starts. If it's gonna open in 2025, set the M&O levy to start, 3 months before that. So when you start hiring people for it. So time the maintenance, time the M&O levy. That's why the information needs to be there now, is to say, this is what it's gonna cost, even though you're not gonna see a bond measure or a M&O levy measure for it until that time comes that you gotta staff it. So, yeah, it'll come, in early 2025, project is on that schedule.
Just out of curiosity, Tom, what's an example? You mentioned M&O and bond running at the same time. What exactly, can you give me an example of what that was?
I just remember the last time that was run, like 14 years ago. I think that they ran second.
I was trying to figure out what they would build and run an M&O at the
So
same
you're talking
time.
about for the $1.6 million for the irrigation and the drainage, that bond?
No, for the pool.
No.
Oh, you're talking about,
Was
oh,
put up.
yeah, I don't think so.
You
don't think so?
I don't think so.
I guess my bigger question would be, is that common?
Well, like I said,
You know,
it's.
it
well,
seems like a lot
the
to
problem
ask.
is it's not common, because to go ask the public to start spending on maintenance and operations when the building's not
That's
there yet
complete, right?
that's not appropriate, right? So.
But to your question, it is completely reasonable for people to understand how much it's gonna cost them
Yeah.
to,
Which,
so absolutely.
yeah, and to that point, when the survey went out to the public, there were two different lines of questioning about what do we want, and then are you willing to pay for the maintenance? So during that survey, it was out there.
Yep.
But it certainly needs to.
Well, like I say, on our information page on the website, so we have a place that anybody can look or send someone to say, here's what it's gonna cost. When we get the M&O levy to run it, this is what it's gonna cost.
Well,
Do we need to, okay.
I was gonna say to Tom's point, so where else should it be other than on the website? How can we make it easier for people to access that information?
We have informational nights, like we're going
Right.
to have.
Exactly, but
That's
what
like-
else?
Matt had talked about doing a mailing
Yeah, so we've successfully done in the past on a district-wide mailing, remember for the M&O levy last time we had that card. So I think that's perfectly appropriate. We we already formatted the data into that format. So I think that would be a good tool somewhere, in that early October kind of window.
Does the school district have a distribution thing that we can, like an email thing?
They have a couple different venues that you can put that in.
Well, we do. We have an email list, right?
It's the same.
We have the social media.
Well, what, are you asking like a bulk rate mailing type thing?
No, I'm asking if the email, we could send it through the school district thing so all the kids in the
Oh, yeah,
district
sure.
get this
Well,
information.
especially
Each
that,
of them.
I was thinking about Marty's work with their new focus of making sure that everybody, regardless of monetary amount, can swim. So everything from swim lessons to the kid who doesn't have enough money or the parent who doesn't have enough money to take their family, they will be able to go. And I think emphasizing that, to Tom's question, what are we going to pay for it? Everybody will get to swim. That's a sizable chunk of money that they've raised solely for that purpose. So, adding that.
From a staff report, the rest were just the dates that are coming down the pipe. So we've talked about a lot of them. Close the meetings. And that is the staff report.
I just got one more thing to add about the graffiti. Water tank and the pump house were hit 2 nights ago. That's a new spot.
Where was it?
Water tank and the pump house next to the water tank in the woods.
Really?
That's a weird spot to get hit.
Are they spraying? Is that?
It's all spray paint and,
How many times have we been hit since?
7 weeks, probably at least 3 times a week. So probably over 20 times in the last 7 weeks. That's more than my 25 years being here. I've never seen anything like this. And if we get hit much more, like I'm proposing that maybe when we leave, we block the bathrooms and we just have a sign say, sorry, restrooms are going to be closed because of excessive vandalism. We can't do it anymore. I mean,
Well, the port's gone to, key codes for their
users. I'm not as worried about sports complex with soccer starting out, but this side now with no baseball around and just a few people around the playground, it just gives them less options to hit. The lakes, the drug use and the problems at Deer Lake, I'd like to just lock that thing up. It is so bad there. The drug, it's out of control. We're finding nothing but aluminum foil, which I think is, it's either meth or it's heroin. We're finding that all the time. And
The tagging, is it random inappropriate tags or is it a lot of the same sign?
names,
A lot of names.
a lot of names.
Well, if they're signing their names, we should be able to find them.
Bando, I like that. Bando. So, yeah, it's frustrating and I don't know what to do. I've never seen anything like this. I actually talked with the harbor today, talked with the staff there. And they showed me a lot of theirs, none of the patches. They're local kids, they're not from up there. We thought maybe they were coming down. They're local kids. But just something to think about. Maybe we start locking up restrooms with signs. Sorry. We got hit Friday night. It was the co-ed softball tournament, wrap-up tournament. Sky was on site till after 8:30 that night. They came in after he left and destroyed the dock. We had games the next day.
But it's happening on the inside and the outside of things, right?
Mostly in the inside of the bathrooms and the other stuff. Yeah, it's both. At the lakes, it's on the outside too.
And our bathrooms, I should know, but our bathrooms are unlocked 24/7.
This gets locked down every night.
What's locked every night?
This facility is locked down every night. Can't trust them. The lakes are wide open.
No, you were asking about the bathroom.
Yeah, the bathrooms.
He means
They're
it's a
locked.
bathroom lock.
They're locked up.
They're locked. Gates and restrooms.
What time? Dusk.
Dusk. So anyway, just something, if it continues, I'll be talking with Brian and maybe this side, we just start walking down to roll out some signs. And I don't know what else.
Oh, so you mean when you leave?
When the staff leaves,
Okay. Not when she comes around and closes the gates.
yeah,
Okay,
damage is already done when she comes in.
got it. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
I mean, it's just, I need to do it, but I mean, it's costing us time to go. Like literally, I've top dressed one field this year and aerated one field. Because this is our time to do a lot of our field work. 3 days a week, shut down, deal with this. So,
Right. Are there any committee reports?
Yes. There's a campground committee. So, let's see, I had a conversation with Malene Garcia DeBoard, who is the new contact for us at the county regarding this project. And kind of explained why we've slowed down and that we're back to it. And also really explained how we see this as a multi-phase project and that the first phase, like they keep asking us for a septic plan and we're like, all we really need to do at this point is put in some gravel, put in some spaces and open up really rustic campgrounds, get in some porta potties and tell everybody to bring in their own potable water. And so basically said that. And she said, okay, now I understand. Let me reach out to both the health department and look at the campground code and see. And so I had this conversation with her and she sent out an email right away, CC'd us and responded back today. I will forward this email to the both of you. I see it went to Jake and I. So Jake, you got that, I believe. And so basically, she said that they need preliminary draft plans yet for a first phase, or if we can provide some sort of narrative for a proposed phase one. So basically, give them a letter that explains what we plan on doing for phase one specifically, which I could have sworn that Doug had done. And I've looked through, to your point of having, a repository of all of this, and I'm just not finding anything, but I could swear that he had this conversation and had this letter, but in any case, we need to do that again. So we need to write a letter saying specifically what we see for phase one. And we should be able to go forward.
Good, yes.
So I will forward this.
So that's kind of a quick urgent one, huh?
Yeah, we'll get on it.
And I'm sorry, I asked that you be included, and I'm not quite sure why you were not, so I apologize.
No, it's fine. I'm out of, it'll take at least a year before I get it. Just
So where does that fit in with, don't we owe Prism an update by the end of the month?
Well, I believe the deadline's passed.
Okay, so
The miles.
Prism requires periodic progress reports. I'm sure we had one due July.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. It's tied to those milestones, which I
Yeah,
didn't
and
realize.
they realize that RCO has some flexibility in applying this stuff, but we're getting right to the ragged edge of their tolerance. So I think we just need to demonstrating progress and documenting it. I think if we could do that, we'll check the block and we'll get a little more road.
So can I drill a little deeper, given that we're on this ragged edge? So who can do that? You
Well,
have
I think,
access?
well, but I think
Does
I think
Campground have access?
well, I think what Chris is describing as if we can get that progress on acceptance of the plan on septic or on then that can be documented as an accomplishment. Then that status report can be written and we can load it in Prism. So it's not, that part of it is not complicated. Us getting through a wicket or two to be able to say we accomplished, A, B, and C. That's the most important part. The Prism part can happen in an afternoon.
So if it goes through and we start making progress, like if we don't get an extension, good chance we won't based on what it sounded like anyways. So then if we get the permission from the county to proceed, and we've talked about different things that we can spend that grant money on, gravel, whatever. The only thing we're going to run into at the end of this next quarter is having funds available and to purchase, to spend. It's that and, ARC invoices and, so it's going to be a little tricky to spend all that money in the last quarter of the year. I've figured out. Because we don't get reimbursed right away.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, because we have to use our own money and then we file invoices for reimbursement.
So like I said, I think even just at a minimum, what we need to do is just document one single accomplishment.
Yes.
Enter it, complete it, whatever it is, and then enter it in Prism as our status report. At that point, like I said, we have a basis for extension that we don't have right now. So I think you're on the right track.
Tomorrow.
Yes.
I'll make it a priority to work on that letter tomorrow.
So one item that we accomplished was that zoning interpretation. I mean, that's something, that was a big deal to get through that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that would be something to state, and then we can ask later if we get more.
And and they would consider that a key accomplishment.
Yeah.
Just because it's a milestone.
And that's what happened. That happened, it was in May?
Yeah, something like that.
Well, it sounds like there's two different things. There's Prism and their accomplishments, but there's the letter for the county to say, here's what we want to do. And that's the letter we'll break out.
Yeah, that helps us.
So updating the zoning code approval in
Helps
Prism could be a part of
Right,
ours.
and realize what
And then
they.
for the county to help us get.
The permit.
Realize what they see as a healthy project is, accomplishing things and reporting on them. So we do one, we make a report that gets us at least a check in the block. And then the next thing that happens, we report again, periodic report, and then the next two things and a periodic report. So at that point, then they see, they would consider it a healthy project. Right now, they see it as a dormant project. When they see dormant projects, they think they can recoup the money and spend it on something else. So just like I said, the more activity we have, the better chance we have.
Okay.
All right, any other committee reports? Thank you, Krista. Any other?
There were a lot of wasps, I believe.
It's
Oh,
terrible.
there.
They're everywhere.
Yeah. So you actually have wasps, or do you have yellow jackets? Because yellow jackets.
The yellow jackets were there right at the public launch yesterday.
Right, the whole
Yeah.
shoreline, I got stung twice.
It's like right next, I think it's in that hedgerow that's on the,
It's
left side.
they're attracted to water, they're also all over.
So I went today to see those, tried to buy yellow jack traps. They're out.
Oh, yeah.
I think they out. No bee spray. Went to a farmer at Home Depot. They were out.
Should have called them.
It's
Oh,
just,
yeah.
Yeah.
it's just unbelievable. Both my guys got stung today working.
You guys got the
These
right
mosquitoes
speed.
are kind of-
You guys are in the good spot.
That's something that's like one of those motorcycles. You're like,
Cool. Yeah.
all right, moving on to unfinished business then. Comprehensive plan programs, we will start with a Southwood Aquatic Recreation Center update. I believe Matt, you said you would lead
Yeah,
it off and then introduce our guest.
I don't know if did everyone have a chance to see the memo that we posted,
Yes.
was it yesterday?
Yesterday.
For what?
The Aquatic Wellness Center, or Aquatic Recreation Center update
Yes.
memo that Eric and I wrote.
Let
Okay,
me
so.
get to that.
Okay.
So a couple of things. So first, we've got our welcome to our design team leadership from ARC, Paul Curtis and Emily Wheeler here. They're going to give us a little slide presentation that's going to talk about the fact that we got to a point in the design where we've now run into a more accurate costs assessment, and the costs are significantly higher than we thought they were going to be. That was discovered right around August 1st, and the team between the design team and Eric and I and the joint product center committee with the foundation president have been working together to try to recover that cost. The goal is to get back to the 27 million number that we've been working with since the beginning. And that work's only 10 days old, 12 days old, something like that. So what you see in the bottom of the memo that we wrote is just stay patient. We're going to keep our sleeves rolled up. They're working hard. We're trying to support as best we can. So you're going to get a status report to kind of see what different paths that are possible. And so we'll see that here in a second. The other couple things I wanted to update that you see in the memo are, we have two successive state capital budget allocations for this project for the design. Last year's was 380,000 net from a 400,000 allocation, and then this year we got another 360,000. So that's aimed at the design funding. We requested as part of this state program that we became aware of in March for resilient power. We made a quick application. We had lots of support from staff helped. We got the county FEMA to help with an endorsement letter. We got a lot of help from ARC and their subcontractors to put some meat in this application. And we found out this other day that we won it. It's the design grant for the resilient power system in the facility. That means designing the PV array, the generator, if we have a battery storage system, the inverter, control components, wiring, that kind of stuff. That's the design, and that's what they call phase one of the grant. The fact that we were selected for phase one, that was for $100,000, so that'll be added to the 750,000 or so that we have from the state for the second phase of the design, the DD phase of design. But what it also gives us a chance to do is apply for phase two of the grant, and phase two of the grant is to fund the actual construction. And right now, the estimate for those components in the design is around $500,000. So we will write an application sometime in the next couple of months when they open phase two. They haven't given instructions yet for phase two application, but we'll apply for that full system. And there's no limit on those funds. And we have a super strong endorsement from the county FEMA. Eric Brooks is the guy's name. So I think we have a very good chance of securing funds in that phase two. So that would help offset cost in the facility. Obviously, that's $500,000 of cost, which nets out to $850,000 in the total budget. The other thing that's in the memo is the work of the foundation has been engaged in on the fundraising side. They've got two subcommittees that are working on this project. One is fundraising, raising capital, private capital, and the other one is marketing. For marketing the project, you've seen them at the Bayview Farmers Market for the last 3-4 markets. They've got a web presence. They're in social media. They've been having meetings with a number of different sub-communities on the island, people in the homeowners association at Lagoon Point, Bush Point, Fox Pit, and all those other places would be shores. So they're working through those kind of communications. But I want to clarify the fundraising on the private side, because Eric mentioned it earlier and it maybe not clear to everyone. They are trying to raise private money along the theme of equity and accessibility and call it inclusion, because as Tom pointed out earlier, there's a question of accessing. Once we build a facility and we open the facility, people still have to get into it, and there's going to be costs associated with that. user fees. And that fundraising effort on the part of the foundation is to establish what they call an accessibility fund that would allow us to say anyone can come regardless of their ability to pay. So that's a pretty simple message, but it's a pretty powerful one. They've got some significant private donors who are indicating a willingness to put up significant dollars. So this would be a fund that would be set up when the ribbon is cut to be able to say over the front door, anyone can come without, regard to your ability to pay. So that's the primary effort there. That was a decision made to not to try to fundraise for the capital construction, but to address the point that Tom made that we're getting from the community is, okay, I still have to afford to be able to go in there. And I don't want to be screened out because I can't afford it.
That comes at a perfect time because demographically in the school system, we're seeing a higher rate of impoverished kids that need that supplemental funding for everything from shoes to clothing and supplies. So that need is there. And I'm so excited about that because I think that's really cool to be able to tell families, hey, if you want to come to school, you can come to school.
And the other part of that is they're trying to establish a separate fund to support this every third grader learns to swim idea. It's a program that exists in Oak Harbor between the Oak Harbor Pool and the Oak Harbor School District. It exists in Anacortes between the Anacortes Pool District and the Anacortes School District. And roughly speaking, it's somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000 a year contract that exists between those school districts and those pool facilities. So the second goal in the foundation private fundraising is to establish a fund that will pay for that. So, we can say to the school age population, families who have, kids on an island who surrounded by water, don't know how to swim, that your child will learn, every child that comes through the school system will learn to swim. And it will be funded by this private fundraising activity. So anyway, that just a lot of hard work on the part of the foundation and this subcommittee, the finance or fundraising subcommittee, that's meeting about every couple of weeks, and interviewing private donors and trying to get people to sign on the dotted line that they're willing to commit funds, either conditionally or directly, to these efforts. Last part before these guys, you have their slides, I guess. Yeah. So the other part describes kind of the cost situation and the potential sources of cost recovery. You'll see a couple of different, I think, in the presentation, it's referred to as paths. So there's a path 1, a path 2, and a path 3. Generally speaking, there is an approach that would remove things that cost money inside the building to cost reduce it. And then there's another path that says, could we save money on the building and not change what's inside? So yeah, you're going to see some of the detail of that. Like I said in the precursor, this is only 10 days old. There's a lot of work that's happening right now that's going to need to happen over the next 4, 6, 8 weeks to try to, get these things wrestled to ground. So take this as a kind of a status report, snapshot, and a good chance to ask questions of the design leads on this. As you know from when we started this, ARC has experience with recent projects of this type in Port Angeles at the Wave Shore Pool from 2017, 2018 kind of timeframe. From Rainier Beach, if you've ever been to the Rainier Beach Pool next to Rainier Beach High School, East Side Community Center in Tacoma, East Side of Tacoma, beautiful place, and the Sammamish YMCA Community Center, which is this weird combination of a YMCA and community center, but it's also very nice and public is well served there. It's jammed every time you go in there. So lots of chance to, if you have questions about those kinds of things, these guys understand what we're trying to do very clearly from past experience. And so with that, you guys have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry we were late. I
Oh,
don't know
no
what happened
control.
with the ferries, but we watched 3 of them come and go. Anyway, thanks for having us here.
To life.
Yeah.
On the island.
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, Matt did a great job of kind of summarizing where we're at. We have just reached the point in the project, which is a major milestone. So the whole team should be congratulated. It's the end of schematic design. That's the first of 3 phases before we get to construction. And there's an estimate that's associated with each one of those phases. So we just got what is our first estimate on the project back. That is based on schematic design documents, which were provided to a third-party estimator. This is not what we came up with. This is people who just estimate for a living all the time. That's all they do. And so we received that. It was actually higher than what you were going to see today, but we did a lot of work behind the scenes with our consultants, sitting down in meetings saying, with our mechanical engineer, what are you seeing on costs right now? Same thing with the estimator, what are you seeing on costs? And then trying to rectify that. So we've gone back to the well twice now in that process to really make sure that what we're presenting today is the most accurate that it can be for where we're at. We're in schematic design. So we always want to estimate to the best information that we know at any given time. Right now it's the SD documents. We'll refine that in design development, refine it further as we go forward. I should have said at the beginning, for those that I haven't met before, I'm Paul Curtis with ARC Architects. Emily Wheeler is going to talk a little bit about kind of how we got here and big picture, what we see that were some of the cost drivers. And then I'm going to try to introduce some of the paths forward for potentially getting us on a budget.
Meet everybody. Hopefully you can hear me over the fan. Maybe I'll throw my voice across the room. So we've been working with the steering committee for a few months now on plans and desires and needs and wants, as well as what fits on the site, where's the wetland, where are the soils, how are we getting utilities to and from. So we're going to look at is sort of some of our very early high level budgeting that we did to try and that's not bad.
Oh, no, I was yawning. It's not.
That's a yawn. Like, oh.
No, it's not. I'm doing all day.
Why don't you go to the next slide? So these are the original sort of high level. Okay, our client has about, we're looking at about a $27 million project. We believe that's provide $18 million for the building, $2 million is a good budget for site, and that gives us $7 million for non-construction costs, permitting, sales tax, and all the other pieces that go into a project. And at a high level, we looked at some of our previous projects in 2019, 2020, 2021, and what those costs per square foot were. And then we escalated that. What we thought was the ballpark, but you can go to the next slide. So then once we worked through design, so we were kind of targeting this 27,000 to 29,000 square foot building. In addition to parks came to us with, here's our concept, here's what we think we want, then we vetted it. Took a little while to get a survey, and it's part of why it takes a little bit longer to get to where we are than we originally wanted. This is the site plan. I know it's a little hard to see, but I just wanted a big picture. You guys have probably seen this. We have the parking lot to the north, building in the middle of the site, and some patio, green space, lawns, and surroundings staying out of the wetland. What you're not seeing here is the water supply extension, septic extension. Go to the next slide, and then the floor plans, I think you're all familiar with. For reference, first floor is the lobby, pools, meeting rooms, as well as lockers. And on the second floor is the fitness and the parks administration spaces and the view around the pool. So this is, we worked with steering committee to come up with the plans, and then our engineers overlaid their scope of work. There's a whole set of schematic drawings. You guys got those? That's what went to the cost estimator. And at this stage, a lot of our engineers are, using Adobe PDF. They're writing their notes on, this is the structure, this is the mechanical. They're pretty detailed systems, but a little bit at a high level, if that makes any sense. They picked out a system, they figured out, does it fit? And we've kind of gone back and forth a few times. And so we got the estimates back, and that's the next slide. Yeah, and realized we had a problem. The construction costs have just escalated a lot in the last 2 years, and trying to keep up with that is really becoming a challenge. It's not just this project, it's every project right now. So the building cost is closer to 24 million. Site costs have really escalated, not escalated, but they were undervalued in how challenging it is going to be to get water and sewer on the site. So our ballpark numbers were not well vetted early on. And then the non-construction costs went up a little bit. So we're about 36 million. This is a 9 million plus problem. And so what we spent the last 2 weeks on was trying to figure out what are some options to move forward to essentially preserve the project as a pool, as a big pool for this community. How can we get there? What are some options? So going back to the design team on equipment, on any ideas they could have. And so we dove into the estimate more and came up with what we believe are sort of 3 paths moving forward. When you're the next slide, I think. Oh, first we're going to talk 2 more minutes about why. One of those big drivers is the site costs. And this is something we are working on. We need to get more information on. It might be a little conservative right now. So, and it's the loss system, it's the septic system. If you guys are on septic, don't know that. We have to, this is a pool building, a lot of showers, a lot of water coming out of the building, and it has to go up and over and around the horn, up to some septic fields pretty far away. So the cost of that is pricey. And then getting water to the building is pricey compared to an average facility.
Can I ask a question about where you guys got your figure for water?
But
Where did you guys get your figures for the water?
Yes, I can answer that one. So that number, just to be clear, is 0.5 million. And then the 0.7 is additional costs that bring, it's sales tax, it's design fees, is what we call soft costs. And that's what brings it up to the 0.7. We've been trying to keep all these numbers in what would be essentially like bottom line numbers for everybody. But because we get our estimates from our estimator in hard costs, sometimes we have to add that, like net to gross part of
but
it.
that number came from.
But anyway, the number we're getting is from our civil engineer. It's actually coming from both our civil engineers, Nate, who is our primary civil, and DeVito, who is doing the more of the site specific, both catching us up on everything that he's done, catching Meg up, but also obviously specific to the septic. Now,
You're talking about water.
I'm talking about water.
yeah,
So if you look at the smaller system management plan, we have an entry in that for the capping for the booster, it says something like booster pump and tap of the existing water system for the aquatic center. Has $25,000 line item. When they did the civil review, it said it's not 25,000, it's $500,000. So there's a difference between those that I don't personally understand yet. I don't know what you think it is, where it is on that spectrum.
so,
But anyway, so it came,
That's why I'm asking.
it came
Yeah.
I
into
just want
the,
to work.
and I apologize, I was taking the detour, but I was trying to answer your question.
so it came into the small water system management plan. I thought from, was it King Water? Who put that entry in there?
I've been out of the loop. I've not been included in a lot of this stuff.
So anyway, so that entry came from somewhere during the development, because Doug was the one who was writing up those tables. I thought it came from King Water, but who knows?
How we can,
They come from Doug. So like I said, there's a difference of $475,000. But maybe it seems like you might be thinking it's more towards the,
so here's, I mean, things I brought up over the last year. Pump house, it's not gonna work. It needs to be, that whole system needs to be upgraded. And so we've talked about that, okay? I talked to Dan Pullman at the school because they put in a treatment plant 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
$1 million, okay, for the water treatment and the building. And so that's something I've said, you know, with this, if we don't have water treatment, there's no way you're running showers and filling them. Okay, so I mean, I've looked through and the water, you know, the water supply, it's very generic. It didn't include treatment. So I'm just asking a question. What kind of treatment are we going to do? Because this water is not, it's potable. It is the hardest water you're ever going to find. pH is not good. That's why the school had adjust pH, was it was eating their fixtures in the schools.
Yes.
And we're on the same aquifer. And so when I got to looking at breaking it down, it said like 495 feet to connect. I wheeled off, it's 1,900 feet. That's another 100,000 just to connect.
Yeah, so I think what you were finding is what it takes to connect the building to wherever the final location where the water's brought to the site is. This number, which is the 0.5 million, does include the distance all the way to the top. However, caveat, the reason that it's just a nice big round number, 0.5 million, and it's probably conservative at this point, is there was no design ever done. There was enough work to be done to sort of proof of concept, show that water could be brought from there, that a pump could be added that would pressurize the line to the appropriate amount and provide it in the quantities that we need. But no actual design was ever completed for that. So we put our heads together with MIG and DeVito. We said, if you were just to price what was put together as, again, a proof of concept type approach, what would you ballpark that as? They said $500,000. That's where that number is coming from. In the meantime, while we're working through all of this, MIG has been developing a number of options, options to try to save some money off of what was basically our baseline understanding of the problem. And we kind of ran into this estimate and have put that on the back burner while we work through what is like bigger issues. But at the time when we emerge on the other side of this, MIG will be giving a presentation. We hope that you're going to be able to be there. That will basically give us 3 options. We'll have to see what's the most advantageous. It could be exactly what DeVito had already described. It could be a new well that only serves our project and, you know, not the campground necessarily, or, again, none of this has been fully presented to me, but these are just things that I've heard on the phone. The other one is seeing if they can, the 6-inch line comes quite a bit of ways all the way down into the park, and see. The initial estimates was that we needed an 8-inch line, but they're wondering if we can run some more fine-grained analysis and basically tap off the 6-inch line with our 8-inch line and make that work. Again, that's not my field of expertise, but it's something we look forward to discussing.
So I mean, I see a level of detail with the building that's very high. And my world is infrastructure, and I deal with that infrastructure every day. And that number scares me. Like,
Our team is aware of the water quality issue.
Yeah, so-
Somewhere in here, I know it was discussed, do we have treatment? Yes, we have treatment. Where's the water coming in? Where are we putting, because we got to treat it. We were talking about the physical reality of putting this stuff.
So,
Yeah, and
So they're
what about
aware
fire flow?
that
What
it-
does the county said? Like, what's a number that we need in standby for fire flow? Where did you get that?
the pump is designed to give us the appropriate amount of fire flow, but I don't know the number off the top of my head.
So that's critical, because right now, we're irrigating, okay? That 100,000 gallon tank, let's say that building catches on fire at 10 o'clock at night. You don't have 100,000 gallons of water. It's on. You don't have fire flow. You don't. So again, I brought this up early on. I fully believe you guys need to have a water tank on site next to this building. And that thing's gotta be full and ready. Yeah. Just, I mean, again, just from an infrastructure standpoint, that's my big concern. So,
I don't know that we have to have a tank immediately adjacent to the
Sure.
building. The civil engineers will have to guide us on that.
Absolutely.
But if that's what it takes, then
I know the school has 2 tanks. At the schools, they have tanks for fire. And those diesels kick on, you're dry.
Now, fortunately, we got a 250,000 gallon tank of water sitting right in the middle of the building.
Yeah, no, I don't know, is that allowed?
It was briefly discussed, I don't.
I know that was Doug's idea, but is that even allowed?
Yeah.
it is allowed in some jurisdictions where a pool designer has worked, but it's not confirmed in our jurisdiction. That wouldn't
School
necessarily.
designers in California, some places.
And then I do want to clarify, I know you were kind of lumping the water supply to the site together with the water softening process of manganese removal. That number is a completely separate number than from the 500,000 and is included in the bottom line number of the estimate.
Yeah, so they, if you remember in the smaller, and I'd forgotten about David O. So the smaller systematic plant, that original estimate came from David O. for when they did the water study. So they did the septic study first, then they did the water study. That's where they did the math on and I think there's a mention in that, we'd have to look, but I think there's a mention in that about fire flow. And then one, the second thing was, if you remember, Doug got the updated water test for inorganic and organic compounds on the tank at that time. So we got current water tests that showed manganese, that showed iron, and that's what went to the subcontractor, the guy sort of doing that incoming water, softening adjustment. So the plan was built around, at least to the level of the design that we are so far, the plan was built around those water tests, which was from the tank, from the tank, done in last summer, whenever that was. Yeah. So anyway, so they had the latest data that showed it was super hard and it's brown or red because of manganese.
I think one thing big picture what happens during design is we do these estimates at each phase and we learn more stuff, we figure out more stuff, we make more decisions, we try and drive a train down the road. And at this level, there'll be some things where we've overestimated and some have underestimated. And ideally, as we move forward, some things will come down, some things will go up. But it's missed something or we learned something new, or we realized something else was needed in the project. So the current estimate, is within 10% plus or minus is kind of the way the cost estimator sees it.
My biggest fear is that we're not looking at the most important thing of a pool, that's getting
That's the water.
and having the water. And,
Right. And all of these numbers have another 10% design contingency.
and so if we're cutting things, this, that, and the other, starting low and already having cut other things, I'm worried that pipe is going to be downsized. Okay, when's phase 2 going to happen? Well, we bring water like phase 2 is going to happen in a year.
And
We
that's
don't-
part of our conversation.
Yeah, you just
Is,
don't.
does this make sense?
Yeah, because I'm dealing with a part that has been on the cheap since day one. And so that's kind of frustrating to get real world numbers and then, well, we gotta go on the cheap. And we gotta go on, and it's like. It's like, you bring all the utilities you're gonna need for phase 2 and possibly phase 3 or whatever may be in the future, because it's gonna cost us more in the long run.
It is
It
absolutely.
always does. So that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I think your points are all perfectly well made. And that's kind of above our pay grade in terms of making that decision about, do we pay less now so the project can occur, knowing that when we bring in phase 2, we're gonna have net paid more total for utilities. That's a really difficult decision and, one, sure a lot of people want to weigh in on.
So yeah, so this obviously is one of the big drivers of the project. the site just is gonna cost us more than a typical project, and so we're working through that. The next slide just talks a little bit about escalation and what has happened in the industry and from labor going up a fair amount, which is great, you can get paid more, but it means our buildings cost more to build. Steel costs are still high from tariffs and COVID, they've come down some and they are leveling out, which is great. Number of costs are leveling out this year, so last year was pretty terrible. But the pool costs are really expensive and mechanical and electrical are still not just 6% higher, but literally 50% higher, 70% higher for those trades. So it's really an issue and we're still not quite getting enough competitive bidding. And so contractors are charging more, products are costing more. So that has led to, I think the next slide just talks a little bit more about that difference between the 650 that we were estimating that we're at now at 800 square, which is a lot. I understand that. And hopefully during design, there's some things we can reduce and that will narrow up, but it's taking pretty high numbers. Looked at other projects coming in lately. And this is where we're at for a pool building. Part of the reason a pool costs so much more is not just the cost of the pools, but every room is chock full of plumbing and wiring and controls, and it's just not a gym. It's just not a big open box, which costs $500. So we're at it. So what we need to do is talk about some options for reducing scope, for reducing how we put this together, or alternate funding. So that's, I'll kind of go through the three paths.
So just to clarify the process that I described earlier about kind of going to our consultants and really like sharpening pencils and trying to get this thing accurate, that did not have to do with cutting anything. That was just making sure that we were fully aligned with what the estimator is seeing out in the world right now, what our consultants, their last projects bid for, what our projects bid for, and sort of coming to these big cost per square foot numbers and saying, how do these align? That's all behind us. And what we found is the delta that Emily just shared. And so now we feel like we really can't go and twist arms anymore. That part of the process has worked itself out and we're basically where we think that the project really is. And so when there's a delta like this, we can either raise more money or cut things. And those are the two options that we're going to look at. And a third option, which Matt alluded to, is to build everything, but do it cheaper. Do it for a less expensive cost per square foot. And so those are kind of the three options that we're going to take a look at now. That was perfect. So we kind of broke these into, I guess, 5 categories rather than just 3. The first 2, I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time on. They were essentially low-hanging fruit options and options that we wouldn't recommend, but they were floated out there. We did contact our consultants and talk about them, see if they could work. And after vetting them, found out that it's probably not a good, hole to go down. So the low-hanging fruit, you can go to the next slide. It's in the actual breakdown of what all these things are is in your, what is it called, appendix?
Budgets.
In your appendix at the back. If there's anything there that you see that you want to know more about, you're welcome to ask now or follow up later. But basically these things are reductions to architectural finishes, material changes that we were considering, reductions to the amount of hardscape that would be outside of the building, like patio areas, reductions to the number of plants that get planted, the amount of irrigation that goes to each of those important things, and they add up. You can see they add up to almost $2.5 million there, but they're not things that are critical programmatic elements of the facility like a pool. They're not the reason the building's getting built. So feel free to look through those, ask questions, but they're definitely ones that we strongly recommend because we see them as, one, you sort of need to take them. This $2.5 million is a lot. And 2, they're not that hard to swallow. Okay, so that was kind of the first grouping.
Yeah, and I would just say from the standpoint of the joint committee, we went through those things and said they're fine. So.
So you agree with that
Yep,
assessment?
yep. And the only other thing that we had, and I don't think it's not reflected in that number yet, on the septic side,
Yeah.
David O had added $500,000 to their estimate just to provide some safety margin. So there's a meeting scheduled with David O sometime this week, next week.
Email this morning said maybe in the range of 350,000, 400,000, but yeah, there's
Yeah,
a
so-
very conservative on that septic system, right?
So there's some additional, additional dollars that are potentially in this category because David O had.
Currently, they're in the next, that number's in the next item. Path one has that loss.
Okay, but not
Yeah,
recommended.
it's not here.
Yeah. So anyway, so there's some additional money that's in David O's septic calculation. Because if you look at the history of their estimate, they originally estimated $530,000 plus $140,000 for pretreatment. Because the thing at the time, there was the potential we would need to pretreat the sewage for nitrogen. They had 660 or something thousand. Then later they have to up that to $1 million estimate. And then what Quinn and David has said is he just added $500,000 to that. So we think that that was just done, to be extra conservative. And so there's a chance to get more of that back. That's where that comes from. And hopefully we'll learn more from actually meeting with them.
So where does that break down?
It's in the, there's a stormwater section, there's the water section, and then there's the sewer section.
So just curious.
It shows 1.5, there's a line item for 1.5, then there's piping.
We got an email from Deborah this morning, can you share that?
Sure.
Does that include, I assume it does, that include they're cutting 4 acres and the grubbing and the removal of material and all that kind of stuff?
Good. I don't know. That is
Good question.
Well,
That's in that 10% design contingency right now.
yeah, I mean,
Pretty sure it doesn't.
it's just,
Nope. Great question.
that's my world. Like,
Yeah.
So when we asked about, David, I can't remember saying his name wrong this whole time, but when we asked about getting some more clarity on what's in his number, he sent this email this morning. This is basically a precursor to being able to meet with him in person. Sure. This one.
Yeah, it's here. Oh, okay, yeah, that's the whole.
Yeah, you're welcome to dig into that.
Did
you want me to open
No, I don't get into the weeds. He can get into the weeds.
Yeah.
Let's keep it. Yeah.
So that was the first grouping. I didn't want to say.
I would just say that's in the category, to me, that's in the category of, I think the larger team is just, like I said at the beginning, rolling up sleeves and trying to go through these things one by one. So sit down with David O and just tear into it, sit down with the pool people, tear into it, sit down with, so there's a pool meeting on Friday with the pool providers talking about, okay, how can we find some cost out of it, take some cost out of this. So anyway, these things are just gonna kind of keep flowing.
Yeah, and just before we go on, something that Emily said made me think of this. To explain what the contingency is for, she said there's a design contingency currently in the documents. It's 10% right now. What that represents is things that the design team has not yet unearthed because the design has not gone far enough, horizons have not come up, we just forgot that some trees have to get cut down. Whatever those things are, there's 10% of the total 27 million, or it's actually the 20 million, so it's about $2 million that's sitting there just to cover things that haven't been unearthed yet. When we do the design development estimate, that number will ratchet down because risk is now more behind us because we've done a whole design development phase of design. And we know more and more is in the drawings. And so those are now estimated as real things. So there's like a scale of contingencies, placeholding for things. And then as those get put into the actual documents, the contingency ratchets down. When we do the construction document one, that's going to be down to 2 or 3%, which is roughly equivalent to what you'd expect for construction change orders that happen during the course of construction. Okay, that was an aside. So the next group is things that we briefly explored. We met with consultants.
Yeah.
We don't recommend that you go forward with these. They're either have difficulty meeting code or technically challenging, and we sort of set them aside relatively quickly. Again, they're in your packet as an appendix, but we'll move through that right now.
So basically.
What packet? So this is what it's asked me to remove from the website.
God.
It's in
Which
the,
I will put back up if you wish.
that's in the,
Yeah, I don't think that needs to go on the website.
No, it's sorry, the board's
The
packet.
board packet, yeah.
Would be public.
yeah, I don't know.
Oh, which is also.
I did not bring a copy of
So what were, those two appendix items were the detailed breakdown of our
The budget
of our
assessment.
estimate from the third-party estimator, as well as a detailed breakdown of each of these value engineering items that we've been talking about, and how much they would save one by one instead of collectively.
And it seems silly to put things that we don't recommend in, but sometimes people are like, well, what if? So we put those what ifs on there to show, okay, we considered these, we're not doing these. So anyway, so path one is the next chunk of savings. It's built on the low hanging fruit. So that 2 point whatever million, the low hanging fruit, plus the items in path one gets us to $4.5 million. And those items are the walking track out, reducing the height of the auditorium space. If you don't have the walking track, you kind of lower the roof. Still have a nice space, elimination of the egress stair with the walking track. And I think there are one or two other pieces on there, spreadsheet. Is there anything else on that? I feel like there's like 2 other things.
I don't have a good sheet either, but the main ones.
Well, the seating,
But
the spectator seating.
the spectator seating, right,
Spectator
that
seating.
chunk, because that's gonna cost money to build that seating deck area.
And the stairs on the south side.
And so that was
That's-
something we thought would be a good reduction in scope that would still provide essentially the pools and all. So we're at $4.5 million reduction.
Is that a total removal of the second story or just, is that a total removal?
No,
of
this
the
is
second
just the
story?
track
Okay,
and
thank you.
the.
So we don't lose the offices.
No, the office, the fitness room, the meeting room, the whole second floor is still there. You can still look down from the fitness room, just going to go out into the pool environment. And so that it does help with not building the track into the pool environment. Right. So the idea here is if there's a potential for the project to fundraise or find additional funding of about $5 million, that this would preserve the design where it's at with additional funding.
Yeah, so this takes that $9.5 million problem down to a $5 million problem. And then the second path is going to take what Jennifer was just asking about, which is the second floor, the path two. and
Yeah.
Add that
Is there a
in.
drawing for this one? Take the next pages. So get rid of stair, on the ground floor, I go to the next plan. And that shows, yeah, so getting rid of the track. So some savings there. And then pathway 2,
Of that, I think the nice thing about the thought behind the walking track removal is it's sort of a discrete part of the building. And we would lose the savings associated with lowering the height of the building. The track is what's driving the height of the building. But if we took everything in path one, except for lowering the height, you could theoretically put the track back in someday.
I'd just like to clarify too, that track, part of that track process was the seating for people up high to be able to either watch their kids and or meets. That was a big driver for me in that design.
Yeah, and Eric, could we go back one slide? The area that's marked as red is what's eliminated with pathway one. So that spectator seating is actually still in pathway one.
that came out in pathway 2. All right, so let's look at pathway 2. How do we get the rest of the way there?
So while pathway one eliminated a piece of the programmatic function of the building, the walking track, pathway two really doesn't remove anything else. Some of the things all of the things are still in the project, but they are admittedly in a less advantageous way. The fitness route, so what this whole pathway is the removal of the entire second floor. There's a lot of benefits to that. You can see the rest of the 5 million shows up when we do this. It's the various stairs that get you to the second floor don't have to be built. The elevator that gets you to the second floor doesn't have to be built. And so now I'm going to go into what are the things that are sort of reduced. They're kind of reduced function, but they're still in the building. The fitness room was, I would say, the main thing that was on the second floor. That comes down and becomes a dual use with the party rooms. The thought is that when phase two happens, that can move back out to phase two and you get your full party room function back, but in the meantime, it's a shared use. The sauna gets eliminated. I just saw that, but going back to the.
There were a few people at the steering committee who thought that was not worth saying.
I will say that's a small.
It's like
$30,000. So that's probably not something we need to be thinking about with pathway two. Parks administration was on the second floor. Now that fitness is gone, having the elevators and the stairs go up there just for that, that really does not make sense. So that comes down and it gets built as a single story element right there. And that becomes essentially what is already sort of conceived of for phase two, which is heading down that hallway towards the right so that you can access the gymnasium. So you come in the main door and you either go left or right to go to the floor of the gym. And then the last thing that's upstairs is the mechanical room. That's brought down and into that area right there. That is one that could potentially go somewhere else. We showed it there. It's really not designed. It's just showing that we need to get that down to the first floor. It's diagrammatic at this point. But if you do all these things, it saves you another $5 million, which gets you to the budget. There are some, trade-offs for sure, but it's what we can come up with.
I ask a stupid question. How's the water being treated? Chlorine or is it salt?
It's the,
regenerative media filter.
I didn't know if you meant domestic or the pool.
No, pool water.
The pool
Yeah,
water.
probably
probably calcium hypochlorite is the most common.
Okay,
It's regenerative media.
With some.
this is all chlorine.
Yeah, go for it.
Cool guy at all. Second story, does that off gas and create corrosion on top?
Yeah, so the mechanism for
So it's about
those chlorine compounds, so chlorine is combining with nitrogen from people's sweat, pee in the water,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Those compounds are the design of the system is before they outgas, is to kill them when you recirculate water through with medium pressure UV light. So you're trying to kill those chlorine compounds before they outgas. If you don't recirculate enough, they come out of solution, but they're heavier than air. So those compounds, that's why it smells in the pool. It's not well controlled. It smells like chlorine. They sit right at the water line. They don't go anywhere. And that's the problem because it gets in your hair, you breathe it in, you smell it, it gets in your eyes. So if you look like at some pools that have been retrofitted for that, you'll see these like ventilation systems right along the edge of the pool that suck the air across the top. They do not go up. But when Doug and I went and looked at Skagit, YMCA, the new one, 6 months ago or so, we asked them specifically about that. Are you having any issues with corrosion anywhere? Because they have the same kind of second level overlooking the pool. And we walked around with the maintenance guy upstairs, window sills, inside the interior windows, and didn't find anything. They found some staining, but there was no corrosion. So anyway, they shouldn't get into the air anyway. If they do get in the air, they should sit right at the level of water, which most pool people don't like.
And then once they're in the air, if they get into the air, the mechanical system to the building, we have the return air located down low. Like Matt said, that's to suck it off the top of the surface of the pool. And then it goes through the dehumidification system, all that gets ejected, it comes back in high. So all the air that's up high is basically fresh, conditioned air at that point coming in.
I'm just thinking because I know what the real world happens. You got heat rising, heat moisture
Yeah,
gonna rise.
it's definitely gonna be hotter.
It's going, so
On the
just,
second floor.
yeah, just think out loud.
It'll be hotter on the second floor. The way it's schematically designed is there's ductwork blowing, towards the outside walls, towards, seating, or towards the outside walls, and then we're pulling air down up. So we're getting really.
Blasted there.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, it's a difficult environment. The best technologies for dealing with it are captured in the cost of this one.
So we believe there's a path forward as a one-story building that gets us to the budget that it needs to be at. And it includes some reduction of meeting fitness spaces. We still have them, still need to program them. There's potential for making them slightly bigger, working with the admin staff, along kind of redesigning that front entry sequence so that it works. But we think there's significant savings to reducing some of the program areas, because that's what we need to do, and then reducing the second floor to get.
So would the engineering of the first floor remain the same so that some point down the line, if we wanted to put a second story on, we could?
Yeah,
Okay.
we would
So-
recommend that in phase two, when you have the money, we would basically, those functions would go above the locker, the gym spaces. So you could
Essentially,
build a
the
two-story
equivalent
floor.
spaces down in phase two.
Right.
Because those will have their own locker rooms and stuff too.
And part of it is, the second story spaces work actually a little bit better with the gym, because the gym, we need to build a two-story space for volleyball and basketball. We need this big tall volume. And so having a second floor fits much more naturally with the gym in our experience,
So it has to be.
and including the walking track, because we need that volume for the sports versus the pool. Everybody's down here, we only need, 15 feet, we don't need 28 feet. Or
To follow a little more on your question about if the first floor can be designed to in the future hold the second floor. Structural cautioned us strongly that codes are evolving so quickly that unless you're right on top of phase two and it happens within 2 to 3 years, that there's a high likelihood that those, even if we did design it for the second phase, that they'd then be undersized and you'd have to do some retrofitting anyway.
it would be over locker rooms. I think there's, what we've talked about is there could be an alternate, and that kind of comes in the next discussion about the what ifs, what are some of the other options. We could design another fitness space on the ground floor, or whatever additional spaces you think we're losing with the second floor. And it would infill south of the party room, and we could design and permit it to be a little bit bigger building. And the way we would bid it is we would draw a box around that space and say, give us a price to have this, give us a price for the whole building, give us a price to add this meeting room or this fitness room or this other piece. And that would give us a potential for having those spaces built as part of the current contract. So that you're not thinking, you just
And can I just,
don't know where the bidding climate's gonna be in a year, basically. Things have been pretty volatile the last few years, but things are leveling out. That no matter what we do, we'll be looking towards having some bid alternatives.
because I have just a quick point of clarity, because we keep mentioning fitness. I know that it got brought up in a couple of the meetings, and I had the same confusion. When we talk about a fitness room, we're not talking about like treadmills and weight rooms. We're talking about
It is
Pilates
confusing because
classes.
we were showing fitness equipment, But now we would
It's
probably be doing
multi-purpose.
more of a fitness, of other classes. It doesn't mean we couldn't, in this scenario, find a small room for treadmills and a couple bikes.
I just think when you throw that out to the public, you say fitness, I think people are looking for a weight tower and I looked at.
And that was
Multi-purpose.
definitely the intention, that's
Initially.
what the second floor would have been.
Yeah.
If it is brought down to share space with the party rooms, that would be more like a yoga class. What else do people do? Zumba, that stuff.
Right, but one room
The
with
kids'
hours in a
Yeah.
bar and
Yeah.
it's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kids dance.
Brian, a big part of that discussion was the history on the last pool failure. It's too exotic, there's fitness, type club.
Sure.
So we're balancing that by calling it a multi-purpose room as opposed to fitness room. What you believe is fitness room, and I believe to be two different
Yeah.
complete things, right? Maybe it's Cybex in there, machines, or maybe you're doing yoga.
Yeah.
So I think it's that fine line trying to appease all voters, but at the same time, not have the reaction that happened last time when people said it's just too much.
Well, and the complexity is, Tom was talking earlier about maintenance and operations. If you look at the M&O models that USA Swimming is the primary advocate for facility construction for pools in the US, and their financial models say that having a fitness component can contribute favorably to your cost recovery. It's because you're going to attract more people to the facility. It's a precursor to someone becoming a aquatics member in the facility. Maybe they don't think they're interested in pools, but they'll come along with a significant other and they'll participate in a dry land membership only. And then after a while, they realize that pool thing was pretty cool. So they advocate for having this capability so that you can have a more sustainable facility. You're going to last longer. You're going to be more resilient. You're going to build a stronger membership base. So that's the fine line, because there's a trade-off. If you pull something like that out, now you got to recalculate what's it going to cost to operate, because we just potentially lost 50% of the revenue.
One of the things I would say, and I'm advocating for it, is below where it says party room, that was a fitness room, we talked a little bit about it yesterday, was making yet another room, because we are giving up square footage, by going lower and not having that very room that you're speaking about, that could be later on, if it could be weights, it could be cardio, it could be anything, but just the potential to have that, to Matt's point, about, how do you build it, but, and sell it the right way.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So instead of a $5 million savings on that last chunk, it's a $4.5 million savings if you do make a larger fitness area there, or you make those party rooms bigger. We can study that.
Yeah, and I think we could still preserve potentially some of that being an alternate, so we get separate pricing for it, just in case things are escalating next year. Still, we don't want to.
Did everybody catch the idea behind an ad alternate in the bidding sense? Would be helpful to say it again.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when we provide documents out to bid, that's to the contractor, and then all the contractors look at them and give a competitive price on what they think they would do it for. You can break out a chunk and say, we want this price two different ways. This example would be, we want a price to 800 square foot fitness rooms or party rooms, but we also want a price to 1,200 square foot party rooms. And then the drawings will show two options and the contractor will give us two prices. The reason you would do that is you don't have great confidence in where the pricing is going to come in. So you're building in some flexibility to what you can take once you know the real bid and the real price from real contractors. So it doesn't have to be the fitness room example. It can be all different kinds of things that we could look at for that. Not sure the walking track wouldn't be a good one to look at. So it's something to keep in mind. They vary from more complex, like the walking track, to literally just a spec change. It's this roof or this roof. Price it both ways. Okay, I said when your budget and your program do not align, you've got three ways essentially that we're gonna talk about it. You can cut it, you can come up with more money, that was pathway one. You can cut things from the building. I actually think this is a good way to not cut too much and not cut too bad, but clearly there are trade-offs here. And then the third way is to cut the cost per square foot. And so, so this is even more. So this shows you that indeed all of the second floors are moved, and it confirms, Eric, that that spectator seating is in this part. Yeah.
So this is another option that's been put forward by Matt and some others for the team to consider. It's a fabric membrane structure. We have not worked with this company or this type of product. It is interesting. It looks like it's an insulated fabric structure. So they take a steel, actually go to the next slide. They take a steel frame and they wrap it with plastic membrane, and it's filled with insulation, understanding it's a vented insulation. We need to learn more about if and how this is an option. The initial cost estimate that Matt was able to get from these folks, I think it was about $1.5 million for this structure versus our structure. We think it's around $4 million. Maybe 4.5. So is there a potential $2 million, $3 million savings by using this for part or all of the pools, our roof and wall structure? This has some challenges with, not challenges, but design things that need to be worked out with putting windows and doors, and you have to build the inside, like the locker rooms would be built inside of this piece. If we did 2-story structure, it would be built inside, and we build a second story inside. And then the mechanical units, instead of being on the roof, will be on the ground. It looks like they have options for solar panels, but there's a fair amount of study that we need to go into figuring out how realistic this is for you all, as well as figuring out the pros and cons of having, if you go back to the top picture, slide before, we can send you guys some links. They have a nice website, lots of great photos. They have 2 cool projects on their website. So we will meet with them and see what else we can learn. It is a membrane structure with pieces that get added on, called stick build. It's metal framing and steel, but we call it stick build. It's built, I guess it's site built versus prefabricated and shipped to the site and assembled on site by a manufacturer. We need to look into how this is done in a public bid situation. We've done pre-engineered buildings in a public bid situation. We work with the manufacturer, we figure out the details, we permit it. And then once we get the low bid contractor on board, we kind of have to redo a little bit of that work to work with the manufacturer. So there's a little bit of back and forth. There's a lot of back and forth. So we would need to take a pause on moving forward for this path to see how realistic it is and come up with pros and cons so that you all can decide if this is a good path forward. And is it giving us the savings? Is the savings there? We think there should be some savings for sure. It's a less expensive way to get walls and ceiling built, but we don't quite know how this would fit over our current design. Gotta figure some stuff. Is that a fair assessment of what we would need to do to try and figure out if this works?
Are there any of these in the Northwest?
This one is in Canada. The company is out of Minnesota, so they seem to be durable. You would want to
Handle snow.
No, we want to make sure it can handle
About tree limbs.
trees. That was our question.
That's exactly the kind of thing.
We're gonna have to cut down a few more trees. Rich, who's on our steering committee, says he's seen a number of these across Northern Europe. And when you go to their website, you can see that, whether it's this company or some others. So it's interesting, as a firm that designs recreation spaces for public agencies, we do want to look into this. All of our clients are struggling with the cost of construction. How do they provide indoor recreation? We are concerned, and we're gonna have to look into, they're showing 2 pools. Pools, as you know, are very prone to having issues with moisture. And so we would want to really understand how this system works, what additional work would we need to do? If we can't bury the conduits in a wall and seal it up, how are we getting electrical everywhere so that it's not rusting? If you've been to Rainier Beach Pool, there's like one outlet that was not stainless steel. It's rusted from like the second week, and that's what, I mean, granted, the ventilation there isn't great, but that's not ventilation. But it just, the chlorine environment is corrosive. No matter how good our mechanical system is, there will be a tendency and some maintenance issues. And so we want to really understand. If you want us to look into this product and this potential, we would definitely be calling these pool facilities. We'd be talking to their maintenance people. We need to really dive into how are these facilities running? How are they working? Are their maintenance guys happy? Or are they pulling their hair out on a daily basis? Or maybe they think this is the greatest thing they've ever seen, and it's just plastic, nothing rusts, and it's just fantastic.
I tell you.
And are they 3 years in, 5 years in, 10 years in?
Exactly, how far are we into
What's
this
the oldest
construction?
version of this?
This forest area right here, this is the harshest environment you're gonna find. The amount of debris that comes down, unbelievable. Trying to maintain this building, just parking lot, worse than ever.
Just the part people.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much debris coming down all the time. So, I mean, I just look at that pretty white roof, and I think it's green.
I mean, we're still gonna have, either way, we're gonna have a membrane roof of some sort.
Sure.
But you'll be able to walk on
And
the
pick the sticks
traditional
off.
build one and trim it.
And patch it. So we have some reservations. We are very interested in looking at this. We'll look at a high level, just as a firm, so we understand if this is a good product for soccer and for basketball, other types of facilities, and then a little deeper level for pools. And then we need you all to decide, we're gonna ask for an ad service for us to study this. How would this work for your facility? Because we need all of our engineers to kind of do their due diligence. We'll ask them to do some of it just because they need to do it, but there will be some additional design piece.
Yeah, well, it's what this,
Figure out how to do this.
yeah, where this came
It's
from
different.
was this community, and it's in Fox Creek and north of Edmonton, like 2.5 hours. It's a community of people who work in the oil sands, like North Alberta. And they were trying to build this pool in a community of 2,000 people. We've got 16,000, they had 2,000. And they could not do it with traditional construction. And so they ended up going to this. And this, I think, was built in 2016, 15, 16. So it's been there for 6-7 years. And you look online at like the actual pool people in this little town, and they love it. So it's got pools that kind of look like ours with a layout that kind of looks like ours. And the other end of it, instead of a gym, well, the end of it that you see is a hockey rink. It's Canada. So in the middle are offices. It's got 2 stories inside, kind of like our layout. So it just looks like what we have, and it looks like Tom's building. Kind of the steel frame. I mean, the construction of the guts is very similar to the new maintenance building, right?
Now, we're a full building, all wood,
That's not.
all wood with a steel scheme.
Oh,
It's
steel skin,
typical.
okay. So anyway, it's appealing from that standpoint, and because it has the potential to take a big chunk of money out of the construction. So anyway, so.
But that would be like a savings of, what was it, 4.5?
Well, so that if you look at the current math, and it's hard to do just because this construction cost versus other costs versus soft cost calculation is a little bit muddy sometimes. But roughly speaking, the building shell that you see in the breakdown is roughly 5.8 million. And this shell might be half of that.
What was the longevity of it?
Get a 25-year warranty, which is sort of what
That does,
roofs are.
that does not mean the whole building falls over in 25 years,
No.
but you probably have to replace that outer membrane in 25 years. Or, yes.
Or at least the
Just like
warranty of that.
plastic on my new house.
And that's saying like a certain amount of light.
But also in a, warm climate or in like a warehouse application, it does, but in this case, there's an outer layer, then there's R30 insulation and an inner layer, so it doesn't let it in light.
So there are reduced opportunities for windows with this system versus traditional, but you can still have some windows.
Yeah, you can see there, they've got windows and doors and entryway that's like Emily said, is built there on site. So you can see there's the second floor inside, see the windows. There's a
Yeah, so.
fitness room up there, there's offices down there, so. Again, it's from the possible pathways, it's a path we have to figure out because there's too big a chunk of money in it. So,
My 2 cents, if you're gonna build a building, don't build a, I mean, 25-year life, you gotta reskin it. Build a real building. If you're looking to save money what's on the inside, not what your actual structure is. Build a building, it's gonna last. I mean, to me, that's just like, well, just my 2 cents.
yeah, and I would say that counter to, and I understand that, I'd say the counter to that is you put 100 citizens in the parking lot and say, okay, what are you gonna do in the facility today? How are you gonna use it? Some portion I'm gonna use this thing in here, some portion will use this other thing in there, some portion will use this other thing in there. None of them are using the building per se. It's gotta stand up and it's gotta withstand,
Thing you have.
it's gotta withstand things falling on it, and it's gotta keep you warm in winter and cool in the summer and all that. But unless Eric's doing pull-ups on the gutter on the outside, no one is coming there to use the building shell itself. So we gotta make sure that there's enough elements in the interior to make it appealing, so that people come and that they use it and that they come back. So that's the balance.
Don't skip on infrastructure, that's all I can keep coming back to, guys. Trying to jump on infrastructure in the building, it's gonna bite you. It really is.
Do we really have the time to fully vet this?
That's a very good question. If timing were not of an issue, I mean, ARC we're more than happy, as it is, we're more than happy to vet this. Think it's a viable option to study. But it is a very good question,
I
how
just
that
feel
plays
like-
out with all the other steps that need to take place.
This should have been looked at.
Oh, yeah, we don't have time for any of this. We're in extremis. So, like I said, it's roll up the sleeves and figure out anything and everything we can figure out, because we're going to the voters on October 23rd. So absolutely, this is not where we want to be, but it's where we are.
Yeah, part of what we've been trying to wrap our heads around is, in theory, either it's targeted, some public outreach, specific meetings in September and October to promote support, let the public, have an opportunity to discuss the design, have some input on the design, how we move forward. And thinking about how, are we showing them a 1-story building? Are we showing them a 2-story building? Showing the track, are we not showing the track, are we just focusing on the site design and focusing on, some of the site elements for the public that they could have input on? How big are the patios, what are the activities we want outside, what are the activities we want in the pool? We could focus just on the pool piece, and what are the activities in the pool, and what are the programs in the fitness room, what are the things you like, we can come up with some inputs, the public has input on programming and activities, and they can see the interior design, whether it's 1 story or 1.5 or 2. That's the conversation we need to have. We can be looking at whether the membrane structure can get us more square footage because it's a lesser expensive construction. Obviously, transparent with the public about what the challenges are with construction right now. I don't have a clear path forward. I think we're looking to you all for your thoughts and opinions on things that the public would like to hear about the project and where we're at. I think what you're going for is a November vote that says, yes, we want a pool. Yes, we want a pool. Please figure it out. You have $27 million.
Timing wise, in order to study it, we're probably looking at about 2 weeks for ARC to see kind of the architectural implications. How can, you can see this is just sort of a regular rectangle rather than, a shape with kind of different pieces to it and stuff. So it'd be kind of reorganizing the plan and seeing if we can come up with a plan that would work with this. Or this is only a portion of the construction, like just an auditorium, what would that save? But we would need about 2 weeks to work through those issues and then kind of hand things off to our consultants to react to wherever we're at. And that might be another week or two, and then we would have our estimator look at it to make sure that there really are cost savings here, or at least that they're significant enough to warrant a major change. And so that would also involve our structural engineer, because Emily mentioned this shell is really just designed to hold itself. And if we're going to be putting other things inside of it, like the locker room with the fitness on top of it, that's like another structure built inside. So there's a little bit of duplication of structural elements in steel, and we want to make sure that the cost savings is really there.
Then we want to come back to you all. I mean, here's what we're imagining this would look like. Here's the potential cost savings. Here's the pros and cons of doing this, including longevity, including, trees. We may have a conversation with them and they're like, you know what, don't put it in the woods. Maybe it kills it the first week. I don't know, not to ask that question. Maybe it has. There's potential pitfalls along the way, but ideally we would get to a comprehensive understanding of feasibility of this, and you all can decide if that's worth savings or if we need to go down another path and to keep to the 27 million.
So that estimate is for 23,000 square foot versus the 20 feet.
If you take the second floor up, we're,
Yeah,
Oh,
there's,
second
I think
floor,
we're
I'll
closer
take
to
that.
26. Yeah,
Yeah.
25, 26. So we have to squish some of the pieces to get under the box.
So
And then we
basically,
still have some pieces sticking.
this footprint that you guys have been working on, you couldn't do that shaped building.
No, it doesn't,
I don't-
unless we goes over the pool. Yeah, we gotta shift some things, move some things and figure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's gonna look like that, not like what we've done. And so there's obviously some aesthetic issues, there's longevity issues, there's maintenance issues that we don't quite understand yet.
Could phase two be linked onto that?
Maybe.
It depends on how we approach it. I mean, the first thing that came to my mind, if you could go back just a couple of slides, is that this is fine, that yellow bar at the top, that in phase two, that extends out, and it's another set of locker rooms, and then you go through either one to get to either an auditorium or the gymnasium. That yellow bar at the top could be traditionally built, and then the gymnasium and auditorium are these structures.
So on this overlay, looking at the footprint, is there room to fit 2 gyms for phase two
Yes.
with parking?
No.
No. Parking is a challenge, yeah.
Okay, so here we are again.
Yep.
Our biggest problem in this park is infrastructure. And parking is the number one. If we ever get to it tonight, we're trying to approve parking lot expansion because we don't have enough parking. That's one of my biggest things from day one on this site was there was not enough room to put our gyms that we do.
Yeah.
That's really frustrating.
Agreed that that we understand the gym's important. The only way you could get additional parking beyond what we've shown is to encroach on the wetland buffer, not the wetland itself, but the buffer. And then, buffer average that to another side of the mountain. We've also discussed, what's it called? Like parking lease agreements with
With
neighboring,
the neighboring sites, yeah, a lot of
school.
community centers, neighborhood schools, or other facility office parks, because that's the dual usage on the weekends and evenings. It's not ideal, but it is a tight site, and that's what we've been showing, except the gym. There's no additional parking available. So.
That or
You can
the-
share your
it's-
I've been
words
saying
out.
this for 12 years.
It's that or the green.
I mean,
Are you mid-sentence?
what?
Were you about to say more?
Nope.
Okay, so just thinking in process here, so the choice to do the ad service, would there be some sort of contractual amendment that you would provide us? And that would be approved by the board, so just another timing.
Right, we have to talk to the engineers. If you guys want us to move forward with considering this option, we need to talk to the engineers and get few proposals and understand sort of, ensure what that would cost.
Yes, I mean,
to do that.
it's crystal clear, we have to consider all options. Otherwise, this project is not gonna go. So those path one, path two, and path three have got to be investigated, absolutely. Crystal clear.
Path 1 and path 2 have already been investigated, correct? I mean,
Not yet, I don't.
Yes, path one and path two are investigated. It's path three that's the question right now. And
Yeah.
I'm not seeing, I'm sorry, Matt, I'm not seeing a lot of heads nodding. So
It's not into what?
Another
to the
quick
statement
question.
that we need to investigate the number.
Yeah, does anybody disagree with that? I mean, it's the opinion of our committee.
not necessarily the whole committee.
We have one person on the committee who doesn't agree, that's Marty.
I think
It's a five-
as a member of the committee, part of it is waiting for that to be vetted, I asked that question yesterday, what is the bigger picture? You're in the business, is this something we should even feasibly be looking at? Or is it so far out there that at the expense of, reconfiguring this and subbing out to a company that isn't necessarily somebody you work with all the time? That was the question I was asking right at the end. And I know it's a hard one to answer, but for that very reason, like, okay, are we wasting our time spinning wheels talking about this when it might only save us 8 million? It might in the long run, or maybe
But the design costs are tiny compared to the capital cost saving. So if it's 30,000 or 50,000 to do the design investigation, that $1 million savings or $2 million saving towards that. It's just, there's no way.
But I don't think we know that yet necessarily. I don't know.
I don't think
hear you.
I think that's fair. I don't think we know what it would save yet.
At least that's what I'm hearing from you.
We're not experts on this type of system at all. We do traditionally build robust, buildings for public entities that are gonna last a long time, get used and stuff. We have not studied this, so I cannot speak very smartly about it. But I think that there are gonna be offsetting costs, that the full savings of the structure is not 100% of the difference between 1.5 and 5. The mechanical systems cannot fit on the roof, so they're gonna have a pad poured along the ground, and they're gonna have a fence put around them. And then the ducts from that unit to the building are much longer than just dropping right through the roof to where it needs to go. And then I mentioned the sort of doubling up of some of the structural costs. I don't know how all that's gonna shake out. That's gonna take some studying. But I don't think it's gonna be the whole 1.5 minus 5, 3.5 million.
That was my point. As I listened to you talk about it,
Right, so
you're
I
talking
think,
about a lot of substantive things that need to be done,
right,
to
so
make that work.
ballpark, I think something to think about, thinking out loud here, is if this type of structure saves 2 million or 2.5 million off the project cost, we're still not at the 0.7 million. Got the low hanging fruit, we've taken out the track, we've taken out a few things. But we're still trying to build a 2-story building that maybe we can't afford. And as we study something like this, I think we need to keep in mind that we need to also study using a little bit of program area in order to still make this work. And the part that we all need to figure out is what is the messaging to the public. And I think we could look at this fabric structure behind the scenes from the public. We can research it as a firm and talk about it and figure out what would fit in the box. While we have conversations with the public about how great the school's gonna be. There is imaging issue as far as like, what's the building gonna look like? Well, we're working on it.
Well, it's now in the public discourse that we're talking about, so there's no mystery to that now. And like I said, from a practical standpoint, if we say it saves $1 million, that's $1 million that can go to that expansion of the first floor and recovery of some of the fitness areas or some of the meeting rooms or some of that.
And build a bigger 1-story building.
That kind of thing. So like I say, if we don't roll up our sleeves on this, we put the project at great risk, I think, in terms of the public response and the vote.
Just to be clear, I'm not against that. I just don't have enough information yet to really make a decision.
And so this fabric membrane, I get why it works in Minnesota and Canada and Wisconsin and the Dakotas. We have sunshine in the winters. We don't. As soon as you touch a fabric membrane, all I can think is moss and mold and what the heck is going to grow in our very long winter
Normally
season.
it's on the roof and we can't see all the growings. Yeah. No, it's true. It's fair. We'll ask about cleaning. I think it will be mossy. Everything where we live gets mossy. Very good question.
But a hard surface, you can get fabric membrane. I'm not sure how that goes.
From a costing standpoint.
Yeah.
I mean, if you guys work with anybody that's done a major project on the island. Gonna need the contractors to come up here to build a school or.
I know, no, our cost estimator has considered that in their numbers.
I'm
It's
just
challenges of
wondering
building on
because
the island.
the
Yeah,
travel,
because
the
the project
family,
in-
just getting materials and all that stuff. I just want to make sure that that stuff's addressed now because that's something they can jump up and bite you and instead of.
We've done projects in Port Townsend and Port Angeles. Yeah, it's challenging.
With the Port Angeles project was with the same estimator, and we did have those conversations about.
Because I mean, it's just
Remote area.
It's just more money.
Yeah.
Just to get material.
Are there any, I'm just trying to remember back and forth between path 2 and path 3. Are there any features that, because you said the walking path potentially be out of both of those plans. I'm wondering, because you're right, I think, because we're getting calls and we will get more calls as this gets closer. People want to know what's in it. So between path 2 and path 3, are they,
Path 1 and 2.
let's leave path 1 aside. So path 2 and path 3.
Okay.
I'm asking, is there, not talking size, just talking what's there, fitness room, multi-purpose room, admin. Are there features that are not included, would not be included in 3 that would be in 2? Because people are going to ask, what's included?
Yeah.
The square footage can be figured out later.
I think if the membrane structure could be significantly cheaper, that the walking track could be added in, that it would be the very first thing to come back in. But I don't think the sign.
No, well, yeah, it's not, but no, I think a fitness room on the ground floor makes more sense than putting a second story with an elevator and a track and 2 stairs.
Yeah, you mean separate from the party rooms?
Yeah, a separate fitness room.
I'm sorry.
But anyway, sorry.
I want to question, so option 3 does still not include a track?
I can't say
You
that
don't
I know
know,
yet. It depends on where the costs come out for that approach.
And realize in the, one part of the conversation with the public is the explanatory statement that we have in the bond. That'll be in the voter guide and in the actual, on your actual ballot, which says it's got indoor walking track, it's got fitness, it's got a meeting room, it's got park offices.
you clarify that?
We
Yes,
can.
yes, the language of that.
It says initial designs include.
Right. So, but again, people's perception, right, is gonna read it, and so we just,
I thought
that's,
I'm
one
sorry,
part.
I thought the language was very clear that it may include.
yeah,
Those
sure.
very optional items.
Initial designs feature an indoor walking track, fitness area, multi-purpose rooms for community meetings, party rentals, and other activities, and to house district staff offices. So we were very cognizant of putting in initial designs. There's nothing about,
And we removed the square footage. What was that?
Oh, there's nothing about guarantees.
Okay, I'm trying to be clear on that language, so we don't misspeak.
Right, but again, it's the perception, the average person reading the ballot and reading that explanatory statement, probably not considering that fine detail.
so we've got 4 opportunities, hopefully, to educate.
What's real? But how are we gonna educate, you know, how to totally narrow it down? Like, I think that public having an option to go on base every would be amazing. I've been just a little on the fence with not having a director at the time, and now big 30% increase and some major decisions to make. So my own thoughts, I really enjoy hearing how we can tweak it. And are we going to be able to make decisions of what we want specifically to show the public for the vote between now and 8 weeks, 10 weeks?
So wasn't one of these, if you, one story, you pick your mind out and you're right there? Is that? one of the
Yeah, that's
options?
just pathway to it. It's the
So-
one story.
So it's not a two-story option, it's one story, you have to deal with elevators,
So
and you get the building that's already designed.
that's correct.
Bang, there you go.
The main,
$9 million bucks savings, there's your building,
the thing that's
move forward.
missing entirely is the walking track, and the things that are less than they are in the original
Can't
design
afford it.
is the fitness room and the administration areas.
That's
And
real world
spectator seating
numbers.
is on deck instead of up the second level.
But the deck space is the same as it was prior. I mean, I understand that.
We would need to study that. I mean, we'd need to find a good spot for it. It would be on the deck.
We talked about removing the seating, being stored and then brought out on deck, correct? That's where we left off, I believe.
Well, originally that was for the team. The benches were for the team.
And that's, we still have it
Spectators were
upstairs.
more, upstairs and more, not permanent.
Right.
Non-permanent, but more established. And then, in the scenario where the second floor is removed, we would need to find a good spot for spectators on the lower floor. On the deck.
The other thing that I just thinking about is that the layout as it is and those components, we talk about what's in the explanatory statement, where those all originated was from the feasibility study. It was done a year and a half ago, and the survey that was done as part of that, if you remember the survey, we got estimated 4,300 people represented in the survey responses out of 16,000 population. It's amazing for a survey response. And so those pieces, parts like the track, like the fitness rooms, like the meeting rooms, like the pool, elements and components, were all built from that. Like, so when we talk about like those kinds of things in the calculus here, there's people attached to each one of those things. It's not, they didn't originate from, stroke of a pen. So that's where you're thinking going through this exercise over the next 10 weeks is figuring out what makes the most sense given that community feedback that exists in the form of that survey. That was the basis for the feasibility. But that's what it's what led to the original layout. It said if you did it with that layout, then all these people would come. So as things change, we got to think, well, what does that mean in terms of how many fewer people would be interested because their input is no longer in the facility considered. So it's just another piece of it.
Going back to Brian's comment, I think what you were trying to do is distill it down to what really is on the chopping block here. And for the most part, it's the walking track. And we might be able to get it back by doing the membrane structure, but that is kind of the big question mark in my mind. Is there room to sort of go into that first public meeting to get feedback about that?
Yeah.
We say, here's where we're at with budget. We can make it onto budget by eliminating the track. What do you guys think about that? And that sort of addresses your idea.
And the trick
Or we
there
could
is,
get a budget by doing membrane structure, what do you think about that?
yeah, but again, the trick there is when we had the public meetings for our M&O levy, we had exactly 0 people show up.
You had that,
We had exactly 0 people show up to
okay.
2 public meetings. I'm sure in this case, we're gonna get more people, but the demographic slice you get in the public meeting, you're not gonna have 4,000 people show up, right? So we have the voice of 4,300 people in the form of a survey. The input we get in a public meeting, we've got to factor in the demographic slice that it represents is smaller. It's just smaller, it's less diverse. So we can't say that if we're going in A versus B, that the public meeting is gonna swing us, even if every single person in the public meeting says A. It may not make sense given the feedback from 4,300 people that we have in a survey. So we just can't think of the public meeting as a panacea to solve the problem for us. We gotta work harder to reflect the will of the entire community.
With a 2-month, 2.5-month before the election, I'm just thinking out loud and I'm listening to what you guys are saying and regurgitating a little bit. Would it make sense to kind of go with this kind of a plan in pathway 2 to the public with the understanding that if the membrane works and that is a cost saving, we'd be adding to this. In other words, under promising over producing versus the concern of saying we're going to shoot for all of this stuff and then be disappointed with it. Again, I'm just trying to regurgitate some of the side comments I've heard and just throwing that back for discussion.
Well, the comment you made originally, Brian, in my mind, option 1 is not an option. I just, I don't even, I just don't think we're going over that 27 million by 5 million and change. So I would like to, propose that we eliminate option 1 completely. And I like where you're going with that because I think that leaves the door open for researching a cost-effective way to give the public more.
Also, it's, I'm going to give the public the benefit of the doubt in that they all operate under their own budgets. And they understand, like, yes, I would like to do all of this, but given what's going on in our economy and the inflationary pressures that they're all feeling themselves, they will understand that there had to be some choices made. And ultimately, they're coming to a discussion about a pool and not a walking track.
I think we could have, thinking we have a discussion about the site and site plan and where the design team has gotten to, and there's room for input. We could talk about outside paths on trails, if that's of interest, get some feedback on how this building connects to the park. Some of that 10% infrastructure is, sidewalks, and, we can get some good feedback from the public about how they would get here.
Yeah, how do they see using the facility? Who in their households do they see using? That's what this is about.
And again, that's what that survey is. So we have that,
Right.
we have that input. Those are the detailed questions asked saying, who's in your household? How old are they? What would they use this facility to do? There were 20 or 30 different options and people checked.
Right.
Yes, lap swimming. Yes, therapy. No, movie night at Google, those kind of things. So we have that data and have had that data to build the plan. I think that's the most reliable sense of what the community wants, much more diverse and rich than we're going to get even in the best possible public meeting setting, right?
Can we change our statement too? It's gonna be on the voter
It's
box.
tough. We tried, we
No joke.
tried. We
Yeah.
contacted, they were great. The county and they contacted the state's attorney and they gave us an option which would have involved shorting public notice.
Yeah, we just.
Or Jennifer and I on the road. So, yeah, incredibly,
Yeah, like I said, it seems impractical if we don't evaluate every possible option. Path one and path two and path three. If we don't, I think we're shortchanging the public.
Well, I think it's a great idea, 100% agree. I just was scared if
Oh, yeah, no, it's scary,
we're 10
terrifying.
weeks away.
Well, no, it's terrifying. No, I agree. I mean, like I said, when this happened, it put the project in jeopardy immediately, right? And place we did not want to be, but I think there's a path to get there. We just got to figure out what it is. And we got a really short timeline to figure that out. We got a lot of smart people helping.
Are you clear on what you're doing for the next 2 weeks or before September 7th? Or do you still need additional direction from
Emma, are
us?
we hearing that we should study path three, the membrane structure? If so, then yes, we are clear. And we'll take it for 6 weeks,
And
basically.
then you said you were gonna get back to us with a cost, there was an extra cost
Yeah.
involved with research and stuff, and you're gonna get that number to us.
We will, but we need to contact.
Sure.
So we don't have it tonight.
Okay, that's fine.
so we would need to call another meeting to approve that.
Or, I mean,
Is that what?
yeah, I guess so.
And I think additionally, what we were planning on doing was moving into design development, so we could start creating the things that we need to do to present to the public and host those public meetings and facilitate those conversations, community. And so we do need some design direction on what should we be presenting to the community. We have
Should there
some
be a second
options.
floor?
What?
In other words, should there be a second floor? Is that your biggest?
Right, at this time, should you be sharing the second floor, should we, right now, we can lead a public meeting where we focus on the overall site, and we focus on the pools and the natatorium space. And we kind of just, in September, we don't talk about too much about the other amenity spaces, we think about a public meeting. And get some valuable input on the rest of the project. And then by October 15th or whatever date we set,
19th.
19th, that we could maybe have some valuable information and say, work on what that meeting would be, if we use this membrane structure, we could also have a second floor, it would add fitness, it would add classroom. Is this something the public is interested in doing? Given longevity or given whatever we discover, and we can do a pros and cons list, and whether we explore that pros and cons just with steer you all, and we just go to the public with more finishes and other things. And we can talk about what makes sense.
And if with our
That's sort
structure,
of a path forward, maybe.
and with our structure, the subcommittee that the board has deputized, because Eric and I as the product subcommittee, so if anybody wants to change that, or.
Just a reminder that it's a 5-person committee.
Yeah, I'm saying from the board standpoint, if Krista wants to be on that committee, or Jennifer wants to be on that committee. Otherwise, we would continue forward with that joint structure with the foundation, working with Art as we have been through this process. So.
Right, I'm not exactly sure what you're asking.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, Chris was asking about direction, like we will be the structure we have to make decisions as we go through this. There's going to be, there already have been lots of little decisions made, but decisions along this path that we go on in the next 10 weeks, we're going to have 2 board meetings. We're going to have lots of meetings with the joint committee, with Art and the team. And if anybody else wants to participate in those or engage with those, we got to figure out a method to do that with the Public Meetings Act and the way we normally structure to do this between two commissioners. And so anyway, I just
Yeah, with
put that out.
public agencies, it varies, but oftentimes we meet with steering committee and then we either meet with the board or city council either right before the public meeting to preview it or right after the public meeting to report back, here's what we heard. What did you guys hear? What have you guys been hearing from the community? So ideally there would be a touch point back. You all, what are we thinking? How are we moving forward? What are we doing? Yeah.
Until,
And before we move forward.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Until the poll's done, could we just, if the other committee members are interested, could we just make those public meetings? And declare them special meetings so that
I thought
other
that's what
commissioners
we
can
were
sit in?
going to do. That was.
I'm talking about the Tuesday meetings that they do. Just to clarify.
Oh.
I'm talking about I'm not sure you even want to do that. I'm just saying that would get around your issue.
I think the logistics of that are
Yeah.
pretty heavy and complicated. So I would personally recommend not to do that.
Yeah, unless it were lumped in with another meeting that we were already having, maybe, but.
I know we're talking about schedule now, so not to take us too far back, but for our benefit, from the original survey where everything was put out there and sort of prioritized for the community, how was phase 1 and phase 2 initially divided?
Phase 2 is in our comprehensive plan, our 6-year comprehensive plan, and it's not been part of the discussion with the public. As a general point, because it's not funded, because the bond measure was not designed to account for that. But
What I mean is
you have
which
to-
things from the prioritized list made it into phase 1 versus some future things.
Yeah, all of them made it into phase 1.
Oh,
Phase 2 was, again, part of the comp plan, which is our 6-year strategic plan for the park.
So
It says we want to have covered sport courts, multi-use court facilities. But it also says we want to have a tennis center. It says we want to have a turf field. We want to have, trail system that's bigger than we have now. So these are distinct projects in the future window.
okay, I may not have been clear. Is everything, you're saying that every single thing that was voted on by the public in the survey is now in phase 1?
No, not every single thing, but just, like I said, there was a list of activities, programs that comprise, I don't know, 25, 30 different things. And the things that got the highest response are the things that made it. Some smaller percentage, the top 20%, 30%. We'd have to go back and look at the survey, but there were many things at the tail end of the list that did not have enough support to make a change to the design.
Okay. Just wasn't sure if there was a process
Well, I
already
mean,
in
like-
place
like
that the
that-
board voted on that or whatever to figure out where that cutoff was, because that is essentially the same
like
question.
that.
Still,
Like diving is a good example. So diving was one of the potential items, like it was included in the initial design and feasibility study because the contractor who, what was the name of it? Ballard King, the guy who's the lead project guy had been a swimmer and a diver in college. And so all their projects have diving included. We surveyed to see who was interested in diving. Diving got one of the lowest responses in the survey. So even though it was in the initial concept design from the feasibility consultants, the pool committee took it out because the public didn't want it. So that process was just the iterative process of finishing feasibility and getting into the contractual relationship with you guys was us going through that, and meetings every couple of weeks, talking about what do the survey results tell us, how do we need to modify what the feasibility consultants told us was needed to be in there with what the public really wanted to be in. So you could compare the feasibility studies it's in the shared drive that you guys have access to.
Yeah.
So you could compare it and see what things got left out. But diving was one. That was probably the biggest thing that we took out because it requires deeper pools. It requires extra space. We went up and looked at Bellingham pool. They had a separate diving well. Everett has a separate diving well. City building public pool that we went and looked at as a separate time, well, and it just got really expensive for the public benefit.
Thanks.
Yeah, I thought where you were going with that was the track. Typically, we build a track around a gym for a lot of reasons, mostly because we have double height and it's a cooler environment. We're already air conditioning that space. Summer, we're, ventilating it. We're keeping it at a lower temperature. A pool room we keep at 2 degrees approximately above the pool temperature. So the pools are kept at 82 to 88 degrees, and the pool temperature, the air temperature is around that 86. It's warm, and so it's great for observing and looking and watching their kids. It's going to be warm there, especially higher up. So that's generally why we don't put tracks in the pool, we put them in the gym. It's a 2-story space. So again, that's why we keep saying we don't think this is a good idea in this facility. We would push this to phase 2, we push it down as a priority for this project. We keep the focus on the pool and what we need to do for the pool.
And the challenge is in that specific case is if you talk to the foundation, who's been the ones doing the marketing campaign for the project, and that's probably the biggest public interface we've had. Besides the survey is the farmers market. They're probably getting, I think their numbers were like 200 or 300 people coming to the booth every Saturday. And one of the most popular items in the discussion has been the walking track, because
do they know they're walking in a pool room that smells like chlorine and is full of screaming children half the time?
Hopefully, because those chlorine smelling compounds are heavier than air, they're not up there. So that's the hope. And you were telling us earlier that you ventilate high with fresh air from the outside.
We'll do our best.
So all those things. So again, the feedback from that section of public has been the foundation representation in our point committee that said, hey, they didn't know if the track would be popular or not, and the public has told them that. That's really interesting.
I think back to Krista's point that the public understands things across.
Yeah,
and we're trying to give you a professional opinion on the track, and it belongs in the gym.
And are they?
And we are concerned that there's no parking for the gym.
If they can have some conversations, since they are the direct line to the public and at the farmers markets. I don't think they were there last week. I think they're there this week.
Yes, every other week.
Every other week. So I think they're there this week. So I think they could possibly be at the market 2 more times before that first public meeting. Can they change their questions? Can they work on that specific question about the walking path, or change how they present that option?
Just be transparent. We don't know what we're building. That's the easiest answer. We don't.
I think it would be nice if folks can drop off their kid for swim lessons and go for a walk.
Right.
Absolutely on a nice trail around the building or some sort of fitness event.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's in the park.
We've got pretty nice trails.
They're pretty nice.
So I have a unique perspective. With another guy here in the island, ran the parks program where we got the high school to turn on the lights on the track in the winter, one night a week, so people would have a lit, safe place to go exercise. And so that idea really arose from the winter here. We talked about the winter, it's long, dark, the days are short. People go to work in the dark, they come home in the dark. And that's one of the reasons why the idea of this indoor, lit, safe, flat, no potholes, no slippery routes, whatever, right, has been appealing to people, because it's a place they can go in February when they haven't gotten exercise in an entire week. It's pitch dark outside. So again, and there are trade-offs to it. Absolutely. In this case, it's going to be warm in there. It's brightly lit, and you're right. So we get that. Just realize that these things have all come from.
Is that a private donation item from other cities, that can be a private donation, and somebody is like, you know what, it's worth $2 million to me to have this track?
Well, I hear Matt say it's a PR thing. People are going to be disappointed if they get this and find out there's no walk.
So one of the things that just in this course of this 10 days, one of the things that the foundation did is pull that mention of that feature out of the materials. So the foundation website doesn't show that anymore. The materials at the market on Saturday will not show that. To your under promise over deliver idea, I think. Personally, I think the public is aware of it more so than other, I had someone ask me at the supermarket at the Red Apple the other night, how's the pool project going? Like the cashier. So I think people are more aware of this than they've been aware of other projects we've done. Because of the partnership with the foundation. Foundation has been, really working overtime to get the word out. And so I think, that's a double-edged sword. The public knows about things that are in the facility that have, lines to them here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What do you think for the public meeting for the next outreach would be important for the public to get excited about voting for the project?
All right.
Do you want them?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just wondering what your thoughts are, like what should that next outreach be to get folks excited to vote for it?
So at this point, do we need this updated slide deck? Because that's not what we have here. We need the updated slide deck. And do we have a special meeting in a week or 10 days so that we all have an opportunity to digest the information that's been given to us and decide on how to direct our students?
Yeah, I think we need a time and a further investigation of Paul was describing, you're describing 2 weeks plus a week kind of thing. Yeah, I think it's the most appropriate time.
That gets us to our next one.
Say that again.
I think
It was
Jennifer,
at least 2 weeks to study, then 1 to 2 weeks to someone, and then this additional time period to an estimate. That gets us to our next one.
Yeah, so maybe it's a week prior to the regular meeting. 3 weeks.
Not in a
But
timeline that they
the
present.
first public meeting is before our next.
Yeah, I think Emily's idea is a good one, that public meeting we focus on the aquatic portion of it, which is not touched by any of this. We talk about pools, quick layout of pools, usage programs, just focus that meeting on the pools. And then focus the October 19th meeting on the rest of it.
I did print out hard copies of the updated,
Oh, fantastic.
if you guys want them now. For
Sure.
Yeah.
Distribute them.
One thing we've done with other public meetings, other votes, is to make sure at each meeting, we talk about schedule and costs. And so I do think we need to talk about the cost, and it could just be the cost, and you guys already have information out there to the voters. This is the cost to them for the $27 million bond. Talk about how that would get rolled out, and then we also talk about schedule and how that, because a lot of people don't understand how long design takes. Probably too much HGTV, and it's like,
It's okay.
why isn't it done next week? It takes time, we have permits, and so we talk through that, you all talk through, we highlight some of the grants you guys have gotten, highlight some of the fundraising you guys are doing. So there are other pieces to the public outreach. Part of it is building voter confidence in your team that's putting this together and our team that's helping consult, and just confidence that this project is going to move forward and they're actually going to get approved. And that's very exciting. Right? So it's part of, we will start putting together that presentation and our recommendations, and then you guys fill in the more information. Together we'll figure out a schedule. We'll do a pre-site plan, some things for input.
So then to your question, or how you work with other entities, do you prefer having a meeting with us prior to the public meeting or afterwards? Like what is more helpful for you? Having a check-in before that meeting, or having perhaps new information or confirmation and then meeting with us?
I think it's up to you all and whether we would obviously be sending slides over to the steering committee, at least a week in advance and getting some feedback and working together. And maybe we need 2 weeks shooting time, but here we are.
So instead of, adding people to this committee because it rests with public, could perhaps those materials just be shared with the board on the SharePoint site? Would that be possible?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then if we have any questions, then we can reach out to one of the two of you.
Clarification or
Yeah,
comments or.
yeah, does that work in terms of a process so that the rest of, or that myself, Jake, and Jennifer can kind of stay up on what's going on, but without, again, adding to public meeting process and changing structure and like that. But you also know that we're fully all
Informed.
briefed on going forward. How's that?
That sounds great.
That
Yes,
sounds-
I think we can go to the public
Okay.
and need you all to be like, yep, that's what we're gonna talk about.
Okay.
That sounds good. Or please also don't forget to,
Great.
do this or. share
And
this.
then perhaps we can all come together again after that meeting.
After September 7th?
Yes, and once you have perhaps some more information.
And we'll bet the timing of our next regular meeting will probably cover that.
Is it September 7th or 11th?
Well,
You missed the first part of the meeting.
Then you just narrow it down.
7.
Seven.
Seven.
So, yeah, That's
You want to be
the
part of our
7th,
call
and
plan
then
discussion?
our next meeting, just to confirm, is the 20th of September.
Except if we continue with the October 11 comprehensive plan work.
September.
Right, September 11th, no, sorry, that is totally set, yes.
September.
Yes, we have a September 11th comprehensive plan meeting, yes. It's on my calendar,
Oh.
so yes.
If we still want to continue to have that.
I believe we need to fill out comprehensive plan, so I think we should keep that on the schedule.
You guys mentioned something ultimately that, at that September 7th meeting, are you summarizing what you feel public input is? I believe you said, and like at the end of the meeting, you said prior to traditionally in council meeting, you meet with council members and then summarize and then meet after post. So I just want to be clear, are you kind of taking the reins on that and telling what you feel public input is?
We,
And I'm not putting it on you,
No,
just
no.
clarifying.
we do summarize it back to you, and then we'll have a meeting and talk about what everybody heard, and we'll say what we heard, and you say, oh yeah, but there was also this comment about that. But we don't summarize it at the end of the meeting back to the public, I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah, we typically do meeting minutes of some sort.
I say that because a third party sometimes is more beneficial. You see it through different lens than we may, you know what I mean?
Yes,
So I find value in that person.
yes.
Yeah.
We often have a public outreach firm that we work with and have them sort of do some of the moderating, so it's hired by us, but it's someone who hasn't been in all of these meetings, and so, yeah, they do have. I think without that piece, we are relying on you all as ears and eyes in the community to bring that. I mean, you are all seeing it with a different lens, but you all have friends and family who are telling you all sorts of different things, I'm sure. So, that is typically an ad service, and that wasn't in the basic program that you guys wanted us to do. You guys are mostly handling outreach.
Well, you know what, how about this is a crazy idea. What if we did these 2 public outreach meetings at the farmer's market?
We
I
can,
just think we're gonna get way more people show up. We're gonna get 200 people in a public meeting. There's no way we get 200 people in a public meeting that's in any other schedule, in any other forum.
when is.
So how do we know whether or not they're
constituents or tourists?
Yeah,
We
you
asked
have
you
the
the question.
tourism, and then you also have, it's some.
Sometimes we have a big board and we have a big board, so we, this is where you go.
Well, we can make it known and ask that question, screen out the people who are coming from Vancouver or wherever.
You would need to, of course, get the permission of the baby farmer's market, but also, let's not forget that most of the people who are there for their livelihoods to sell produce and baked goods, and we don't want to negatively impact their business.
It was just a dumb idea. I just think it gives us a chance to get more people.
Potentially could draw more. If people are coming.
Yeah,
and they're
exactly.
saying,
You could go the other way.
I mean, just, and it doesn't, to me, it wouldn't have to be that heavy hand and say, hey, here's a chance to speak directly with the architects and the project and provide your input. And
6 o'clock meeting.
Welcome.
I think if you know,
An opportunity, yes, but at an official public meeting, I think it would have to be in addition to.
well, no, I mean, none of these would
we
be an
would
official
suggest
public
you
meeting.
do flyers at the farmer's market.
Yeah,
The foundation has done flyers.
No, not a board meeting, I mean.
yeah, right, oh, right, sure. Anyway, just a thought, because it's gonna happen, the materials will all be there, the people will all be there.
Could there just be kind of an informational station?
That's basically what it is.
Yeah, but just people go by and spend as long as they want or not.
That's, yeah, I mean, that's essentially what it is. It's 10-foot table, 10 by 10, 10 by 10, 10, poster on a poster board on an easel, and notepad for people to fill in for ideas and.
I mean, kind of to the point, if you put that same meeting in a building, the people that are interested are gonna show up. If you tell those same people that are interested that it's at the farmer's market, they're going to the
They're
farmer's
already
market.
gonna vote for
And
it.
then, like I said, that actually might increase traffic, it might actually help.
Well, the thing that I just from having manned the booth at the farmer's market, I could say, and Eric man, different opinion. We get absolutely, I mean, from all corners of the island are showing up to talk about people who like the pool, don't like the pool, never heard of the pool, know everything about the pool. Like it is as diverse as I've seen in any kind of public forum. There's just a lot of different people with different opinions, different questions, different thoughts.
I would suggest if you have the manpower, we do both. You can have a public meeting on the 7th. Those boards can be taken to farmer's market or some, version of that, and some flyers handed out about the vote. And then the second public meeting, you guys can take the boards to the farmer's market. We did go to the Covington Farmer's Market a month or so ago.
And white salmon.
White salmon. It is a really nice place to meet folks. I think it does get a broader outreach for people who may not be tracking what's going on in the pool. Just think about it.
Pretty clarity were we still talking special meeting before September 20th regular meeting, or the plan now at this point to kind of just wait and maybe have this discussion next, I'm not sure when we'll have that.
I think next board meeting.
Yeah, just provide us the information, put on the SharePoint sites that were.
Yeah, and you guys are vectoring.
All right.
All right, are we at the point, are we comfortable?
Yes.
Clearing your head?
Please.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and thank you guys.
I have one question, I'm sorry. So the 7th is 3 weeks away.
Yeah.
And we have a fair amount of work on our part, it's not a ton of work, but we have some work to do. We need to get it to you all, you all need to approve it. We need to get it published. Right. We could make it work. It is tight though to have that dialogue and make sure that what we're presenting is what you guys want us to present. I was gonna suggest if we move it to the 14th to give ourselves one more week. You guys already secured a space. Throw that out there. You guys can say, nope, we're doing it 7th, that's fine, we will.
No, I think that conflicts.
The 14th is the following Thursday. It also is, I don't know for you all, that 7th is the first week of school and some people are still like trying to find their shoes.
Yeah.
Relate to that.
What's that?
So I was asked her if she related to that.
Yeah, to me, that's fine. I think it's probably better.
Yeah, that
Did I just say it? Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, so we're moving into the 14th.
I got it. Okay. So, yeah.
You guys have much more stamina than I do.
Only halfway
I've
through.
got little kids and I'm usually in bed by 9. Sad, but true.
I won't share with you the next Thursday at 10. I'll just keep that to ourselves.
And there's a lot.
Oh,
It
yeah,
might
plenty of
not be,
time.
it might not be.
We're last on the agenda, right?
Oh, no.
No.
We're not.
No, we were not.
Nice, you're.
Okay.
I'm really sorry.
You were just in time for your part of the agenda.
But you were the on.
You were
the-
really timely, we didn't have to adjust it.
Okay, so we did that.
Okay,
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
thank you guys.
Yeah. Be in touch.
Ken, what you guys are doing and what you two are, and your committee are doing, it's just breathtaking how much you guys are.
Yeah.
Getting done right now, so. It's impressive.
Needs to be.
Yeah.
We haven't made a meeting? No. It's been a long time.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Safe travels.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. All right. Local parks deferred maintenance grant,
Okay,
we have a resolution.
We do.
cool.
So that maintenance grant opened, the window to apply opened yesterday, day before yesterday, 15th, yesterday. And so I wrote the application, it's in Prism. The limit is $100,000 to prioritize projects that came from Tom. Had 3 projects in them. The number 1 priority was the overlay of the sports complex parking lot for $100,000 plus $27,000 from the budget. That's number 1 priority. There were 2 others. There was a pump replacement for the water system, and the other one was a mower. Per the criteria in the grant program, the other 2 don't really qualify. You can get equipment, but you have to have equipment that's tied to a deferred maintenance item. So like a mower that's tied to regular maintenance doesn't technically qualify. And the pump situation, they define an acceptable project as one that is a partial replacement of something, not a full replacement of something. So you can replace the piping and not the pump, or so it's borderline. And looks to me from reading it, and I said it on the webinar they had on 2 days ago, it's borderline that we wouldn't get as high a score, but the parking lot is right in the sweet spot of this program. Because you're doing something that will allow you to, that's deferred because you could get by with the way it is, which is how this is. And if they spend $100,000 on us, maybe you can prolong the life of that parking lot before you have to do $1 million, tear it all apart and start over. So it's right there. It's going to be, I think, from reading and listening to the webinar, it's going to be our highest scoring project. So it's written around that. And the only thing that we need to do is, and I asked Brian and Carrie to take a look at the application right up. If anybody else wants to, you can look at it, and it's in Prism. It's really simple. You just have to describe the need and the impact. And so I wrote about 2,000 words on to that. And there's a 2,500 word limit. We just need to pass this resolution that authorizes us to apply. The application window closes on September 18th.
Yeah.
So we're ready to apply right now. As soon as this is done, we upload it to the application, and then once we say it's smooth, we can apply to it. They make the decision. They do a board review in September. October, we get questions back and forth if they have questions, and then the money, it gets voted in November, or in October, money gets made available in November. And then we have a year, we have until June of 2025 to spend it. But one of the other criteria is if you can show that there's no impediments to you spending it, you get more points. So in that part of the application, we say we could spend it right away. So anyway, so could get money as soon as November, and then could be launched in, if the conditions are right to do the project, we could spend it and do the project. So the resolution is the standard form from state RCO that authorizes me and Carrie, I think it's got you on it and me on it and Brian on it to enter the application. You have it to pull up, you can
Yeah, the resolution.
read it, yeah.
Sorry, but I can get some.
Get a lot passed.
Yeah, I had to get everything open, so it's if they're currently neglected them.
And the nice thing about it, while you're looking for this, is that it's the first time I've ever had a grant program aimed at deferred maintenance, because deferred maintenance by its nature is deferred because you never get around to paying for it, so somebody found a bid, they had $5 million that came available, and they said, what would have the most impact? And somebody in RCO said, how about something focused on deferred maintenance? So you can't do it on regular maintenance, you can't do it on new construction, expansion, growth, and others. So, and it's set up to be, it's set up to run it again every 2 years, but they don't know if they're gonna get funding ever again for it. So it's not yet a regular grant, like in the normal biennial cycle that we use.
So Carrie, I was a bit confused. There was a replacement one that came out.
Yes.
So one is an applicant authorization and electronic signature.
That's the one.
That's the one we're working on.
That's the latest and greatest. Yeah. Yeah, they changed it.
Is that this one?
Yes, okay.
Okay. So this other one,
Yeah. Yeah, they changed it. When I asked them early on, it was months ago, they said the other one would get us there. Because we're in a sticky spot because we have our meeting and then the application process opened immediately. Yeah, it was a short time, so we have it.
So,
One thing I just want to know, they emphasized in the little orientation to it, there's no extensions. You have to,
We'll spend it.
yeah.
Get it done.
yeah, if we can't spend this by 2025, we gotta.
Okay.
So you need a motion.
yeah, so if there's no further discussion or questions from that, then I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution. Oh, do you have the words for the resolution, Carrie? The numbers?
I'm starting to go back and forth between
That's
minutes and.
It's 2023 over.
Okay, very good. Sorry.
Okay, so a motion for resolution number 2023-04, which will
You
authorize,
don't have to go into all of that, the resolution, so
okay, just, so, make a motion for resolution number 2023-04, which is the grant application resolution for the deferred maintenance
Sorry.
grant.
So I did not hear
Sorry.
a motion to approve.
Oh, okay. So,
Except for.
gotcha. Will make a motion to approve resolution number 2023-04 for the deferred park maintenance grant application. Authorization, that's it.
I'll second the motion.
Jesus, Mary and Joseph.
I'm looking forward to only doing minutes.
What I meant to be doing this one?
Yes.
Oh, that
Except for
makes sense.
minutes, yeah.
Sense.
I'll fill it. It's okay, it's gonna
It's
be so
important
much switching back and forth, you guys are gonna feel ill. It's okay.
It is one month.
Hi, Sky.
Hey, everyone.
That was music.
Did you hear it?
A little bit.
Did I hear it? I
Yeah,
know.
okay.
Good turnout.
Why you do that?
No, 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 underneath.
Power supply.
Oh, wow.
How's the bathroom?
It doesn't seem like when you look out there.
Really?
It's so big. But
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's huge.
Especially coming out through the big festival this last weekend. It's a lot of music.
it is, but you get a big band there, and nobody got that.
In the discussion you're having, I thought someone had their phone on first. Okay.
Okay.
Music.
So did I get this right? Motion to approve resolution number 2023-04, grant application resolution authorization. Oh yeah, for maintenance grant.
Hey, stop. That's contagious. I wasn't kidding, by the way. The next Friday night is 10 o'clock. So,
I felt funny.
yeah, I'm hoping to be on that.
And I'm sure they don't say it's just in local theater.
Yeah, that's a good point. I live in Alma, so I'm just saying, my drive home tonight is gonna be a little long. That's all right. Music's good.
Okay, I need first back. Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. You need it bigger? Okay, get better.
Never come in with a
It's like a computer and you personally.
I should, exactly. I should never.
Okay, remind us right now.
Are we ready?
never come in without public.
Yes, we are.
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 2023-04, grant application. Grant applicant resolution authorization for the deferred maintenance grant. All those in favor say aye.
Eric, I.
I,
Krista, aye.
Jake, I.
Jennifer, aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it and the resolution passes.
Here's the, sign that.
Lost my agenda. There we go. All right, moving on to the property acquisition consideration discussion. This is for the property that's for sale on Max Welton. Had a conversation with the listing broker yesterday. There's nothing to report. There's no movement on them. No movement on it.
No news?
No change in price.
No change in price.
No.
Yeah. In a previous conversation, I had asked her. Oh, I know. So seller financing was an option. And I don't know if that's anything that we can enter into. Right, so a public finance or a seller financing, you know, we could do for 3 years, 5 years, and then there would be a balloon, which would give us a chance to pursue some grants or some money other way. So,
I think we'd have to look to see if we can do that as a public.
right,
Doesn't seem like anybody's jumping at the
No, they're
property.
not.
And we haven't fully researched whether or not 525 access is even doable.
well, and that's what I was talking with her about, was that is such a big, because that's not Island County, that's WashDOT. All right, so enough on that. Moving on to new business, financial institutions updates for staff changes.
Okay, this is basically just onboarding Brian for all of our processes that have to do with finances. And removing Krista to be added for the time period while we didn't have a director. And that's it. Oh, so it's in two parts. There is the resolution to change the auditing officer, so that's a resolution. And this is so that Brian can sign vouchers. And then a separate motion would be item 2, which is multiple parts to it. So starting with any questions about this?
We did it about 6 months ago.
Yeah, so I would entertain a resolution, 2023-05 to change the designated auditing officer, sorry. So if you've got the memo there in front of you.
So it,
You have the memo, this language is really
No, that's
sweet.
still, it's just,
You want to make some number one?
So what are you're asking us?
So we're looking for a resolution for this, or for a motion for this resolution.
And you can see that I am just taking from the resolution. See what I'm taking there?
What she's highlighted,
Resolution, so you're saying that, yeah, okay,
a
so,
motion to approve.
okay, so I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2023-05, changing designated auditing officer, adding Brian Thomaser and removing Krista. Say that.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 2023-05. Resolution to change designated auditing officer, adding Brian Thomaser and removing Crystal Washer. All those in favor say aye.
Eric, I.
Aye.
Krista, aye.
Jake, aye.
Jennifer, aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it and the motion passes. All right, the next action items are updating authorized signators and financial contacts for district business. Is this, do we need to take a motion? A motion, okay. So, and can we do all three of those bullet points as one motion?
I like the idea of doing that.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to authorize Brian Thomaser,
That's fine.
financial contact for a bank account, direct deposit payroll. Also authorize Brian the credit card account and authorize Brian as signature for vouchers and investments.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
It has been moved and seconded to authorize Brian Thomaser as financial contact for our bank account for direct deposit payroll, adding Brian Thomaser to the credit card account, and authorizing Brian Thomaser as a signator for vouchers and investments. All those in favor say aye.
Eric, I.
Aye.
Krista, I.
Jake, I.
And Jennifer, aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it and the motion passes. Ready? Okay. The next item is an appointment of agent to receive claims. This is a resolution 2023-06 appointing Brian as the new director to receive claims. The claims would be any claims that would be filed by the public under RCW 4.96.020 for damages made under. So if something happens to someone in the park, is that kind of the gist of it?
Yeah, so if something happens and they want to file a claim against us, then this will be placed on our website saying this is who you take your issue to.
Okay. So. About that.
So I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2023-06, appointing Brian Comisar as the agent to receive claims.
I'll second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded to approve resolution 2023-06, appointing Brian Thomaser as the agent to receive claims. All those in favor say aye.
Erica.
Aye.
Krista, aye.
Okay.
Jennifer, aye. All those opposed say no.
See that.
The ayes have it and the motion passes.
That was Eric, right?
Chris.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Next up is the concession stand roof replacement.
All right, well, we have $30,000 in the budget to replace the roof in the concession stand. Staff sent out and solicited bids. We had 5 bids returned. Clearly, the lowest bid was Valentine Roofing. This will be for a composite roof. Staff recommended that for maintenance and also just the savings of it, I think. But the catch with Valentine is that they do require 25% down in front. Not unheard of. I know it's not common practice to pay before services are rendered. But in this case, we're recommending because the saving is so significant. They're the only bid that came in under what we had budgeted. And they have a good reputation. Actually heard their radio jingle on the radio this morning. But anyway, so staff is recommending that we go with the lowest bid on this one. Tom's already met with the key person there. He feels very comfortable with them getting the job done. We also are asking the board to authorize us to put down the 25% up front. That's our recommendation at least.
About a 3-day job. So once we authorize pick color, they'll get us on the schedule.
Did they say like how far out they're booking?
Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like a
Yeah,
month or so.
Yeah. Yeah,
I was
so
gonna say, because it needs to be done.
Yeah.
yeah, before the rainy season.
Yeah, okay, all right.
It's like a 25-year roof.
It's actually a 50-year roof, and so the manufacturer has 50-year on the product, and the company backs workmanship for 50 years. Okay.
Wow.
Positive.
Yeah, yeah, it's just the architectural, the thicker, it's not the old 3-tab.
Yeah.
So
It's
50
real
materials can be
clear.
installed.
He's a local partner, walks here multiple times, and he has the ability to actually get a $3,000 credit back to, he's like, I walk here every day, I want to see my roof.
There you go.
All right, well, I will make a motion to go ahead and contract with Valentine Roofing to do the concession stand roofing and to go ahead and advance them 25% as per their terms.
Second the motion.
Do we need to state the dollar value? of the
I
motion?
think so, not to exceed maybe.
Okay, and
Maybe-
a
oh,
dollar
wait.
amount not to exceed $21,606.94.
We second the amended motion.
We're really getting good at this. I think you should do this every meeting now.
How did you stage the part about the deposit?
To go ahead and pay the 25% deposit. As per their terms, it's their.
It's you.
Okay, I know I said not to exceed, but, Tom, do you foresee any situation in which we would have to use the rest of their
items on their list, like the,
Yeah, we put those in mainly, on newer or roofs like this one, real thin plywood. They actually found a couple of pieces of soft plywood that needed to be replaced. So there was an alternate in there for per square foot for decking replacement if needed, if you had, but you may have a leak. The other one was fascia replacement. Again, that building with fascia is like real cut 2x4s. It's not like the 5/4 screws on newer buildings. So I'm really not anticipating anything. You can actually see the exposed real old school plywood underneath the eaves of that building. So I don't anticipate, finding any damage like that. If we do, we'll address it.
So are we sticking with the not to exceed?
That's your call.
if you just want to leave it flexible, I guess you would just say there his bid or quote or whatever. If you wanted to leave it flexible, open for that, I guess you would just say his quote, which outlined some other figures or not to
I
exceed.
mean, in the quote, yeah, it does have a dollar figure per square foot for
Yeah.
replacement of decking as needed.
So you could just say approve his quote.
Okay.
Sorry, backtracking on you.
It's safer, so we have to come back again if it's
So you-
$2,000 more or $1,000 more, we'd have to come back with something like that. Maybe safer just to say not to exceed. Quote given. I mean, that's
So you want a different not to exceed of up
Written
to,
bid.
how about $23,000?
Oh. Okay.
Does that help?
Sure.
I'm good, comfortable with that, I feel comfortable with that.
Or do you need me to do this again, or just amend the motion to amend the do not exceed to 23,000?
I second the amended motion.
If the images discovered. Whatever.
It's good.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Valentine Roofing Incorporated quote not to exceed $23,000 and to pay the 25% deposit for their terms. All those in favor say aye.
Eric, aye.
Aye.
Krista, aye.
Jake, I.
Jennifer, aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it and the motion passes. Playground expansion project, another decision item.
All right, just as we mentioned earlier, we're looking to expand the parking lot up at the Castle Park. We have $20,000 in the budget for this. Staff received 3 bids back, straightforward. They were all close. They were all under budget. What we have, Morley and Sons Construction was the lowest bid, so recommendation is to go with them.
Any questions, any discussion? All right, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve going with Morley and Sons Construction for a full amount of $18,146.92.
Second motion.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the Morley and Sons construction bid for the playground expansion project in the amount of $18,146.92. All those in favor say aye.
Eric, aye.
Aye.
Krista, aye.
Jake, aye.
Jennifer, aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the motion passes. Update on the termination of lease agreement.
Okay, so as we were starting to suspect, the county is making plans to to take back this building for their own purposes. They're feeling a crunch with space part of it had to do with them having projects going on and needing to move people from those spaces elsewhere. But regardless, the end result is that they're going to terminate the lease ending December 31st of '24. So I called Ryan, the facilities director, and asked him a couple of questions. Would it be agreeable to terminate the lease earlier? Should we find a suitable accommodation prior to December of '24? And the thinking was perhaps space across the street may be available that we would want to get a hold of and not let it go. So the answer was yes, and that next fall was when they were going to be really feeling the pinch for staff space. Our contract states a 90-day written notice.
So next fall, you mean a year from now?
Yeah.
Yes, I believe that's what it intended, yes. So then I asked him, is there leeway for extending the lease a bit if we were unable to find another location, or if, say, we're anticipating having office space in the new SWPRD, the Aquatic Recreation Center? The answer was maybe, kind of a leaning towards yes, and that it would need to be approved by the county commissioners or county admin. So there was a possibility of that. And we have other options for offices. And Brian, I think, is going to reach out to the school district about space over there at the south campus of the elementary school, or whatever they're going to call it now, where their new admin buildings are. Renovating well, there's all sorts of ideas, nothing to,
It may be a great time to emphasize reciprocal agreements. And
yes,
honestly, I
Yeah.
mean, that was the
We
word
talked about
that I
that.
got, so
yeah,
this would be a good chance to break ground.
take advantage of that, especially if it's temporary to, you
That
know,
school's
they can
available,
throw
they
us
have
the
the
phone
space.
for it,
That's logical.
yeah.
Obviously, the pools are destination. The school makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So, just as a frame of reference, so our base monthly rental amount is $1,740. They give us a $1,300 credit for paying utilities such as electricity and propane. And we also pay for janitorial and provide landscape care for the entire property. So we pay about $440 a month currently. This is just an update.
But I mean, 440 plus the 1,300, right?
Plus the cost, right?
Yeah,
Seven.
I mean, we write a check for $440.
right. It's not $440 a month.
No,
That'd be nice.
yeah.
I hope this means that they're hiring people.
Sounded like they got a bunch of grants.
Yeah.
So the health side is really booming. Was also talked at one point, possibly sheriffs.
Yeah, out of freedom, and bring that down here.
Help with the vandalism.
No.
Right back door.
What have I been waiting for?
Item is, Tom's still here.
You mean that just tonight, or do you mean?
It's been 25 years.
I think it was a world record meeting. I don't remember sitting with 3.5.
No,
Oh,
you
please.
forget Terry Arnold.
2006,
Yeah.
I put it on my mind.
My first meeting lasted until midnight. I remember thinking, I told Kirk Gordon, I'm like, you didn't say until midnight.
All right, people, well,
Midnight.
this is my first meeting, so let's go. So start talking pool.
I've been there. We didn't even have controversial stuff to talk about. We just went on forever. Literally.
Well, Jennifer brought me over a nice card. I appreciate all you guys, and messages and stuff.
Do you buy anything
Little
yet?
press- Not yet, I'm too busy. Can get out of here. But, yeah, definitely appreciate all the support. It's never easy.
What was your start date? What was the date? What was the?
I think it's July 20th, 98.
All right. Wow.
So, long time to do one thing. Hasn't been one thing, it's changed a lot. 40 acres when I started, over 400 people.
Wow.
And it's come a long way. I tell people all the time, the cool thing is, you look at most of the trees that are in the park, like the ornamental trees, they're planted on this. And so they're getting big. So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well, you're leaving a legacy, Tom. That's a pretty cool thing. I mean,
It
honestly,
is.
you know, people come here and first thing they talk about is the parks.
Yes.
And it's because of what you do. No question about that.
Well, you know, I mean, none of it would have happened if, you know, the board didn't trust kind of the way back when, you know, we kind of put together a program of buying, you know, expanding and growing as we grew slowly. And I mean, the mini excavator that we bought has been the game changer. I mean, look at the trails that I've built with that thing.
Right.
Never would have. Never ever would have. So, yeah, I mean, just having the staff, having the equipment.
Well, you as the maintenance lead for the park, you wear the park on your sleeve.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Your work is laid bare for everyone to see, right?
Yep.
You get credit for good and you get blame for everything that's in the less than good category in a way that no one on the board, no one in the staff does, right? And that, like, to make the good part good is a lot of heavy lifting, but the other part is also a lot of heavy lifting, and that's stuff that happens behind the scenes that no one will recognize you for. You know, you've had to be a maintenance expert, an infrastructure expert across, vast various systems, right? And keeping this place perfect, you ask somebody who comes here to play in a Little League tournament or play pickup soccer, or, fly a model airplane, and the word you hear most often is coming out of here is it's perfect, right? And that's with windstorms and drought and floods and, tempest and, everything that this place can throw at you. And people driving across the fields and people spray paint in the water tank and all of it. But, besides just the maintenance skills, you had to demonstrate, this other side, which is communicating, negotiating, building consensus, finding some middle ground with somebody, listening, being empathetic, all those things that are not in the maintenance manager job description, but are a huge part of every single day. And, you deal with a greater section of the public than anybody even carry properly. And they're not always as nice as they are when they come to carry. And I would say you've done this across, not just that 40 acres, but everything else. What would you have said if someone back in that first 98 had said, oh yeah, by the way, you're going to be taking care of the infrastructure and the public access to Deer Lake, Goss Lake, and Long Lake.
Never thought that.
You're going to build a trail system and the first ADA trail in Island County and truss line trails, and all of a sudden there's going to be hundreds of people a week using that place. There wasn't even pickleball when you were hired. There was, you may have been a skateboarder, but you didn't know about the pump track. And those facilities, as they've expanded, have housed programs. Carrie could write a list a mile long of programs that the facilities have supported: children's days and chum runs and model airplane flights and Little League tournaments and,
Christmas in the park.
Christmas in the park. I mean, I'll bet you the two words canine and nosewood didn't even ever occur to you back in 1998, right? Right? But you figured that out, right? And then on top of that, like in this window that we're in now, through COVID and through all of it, you've been working to build a foundation for the park for the future. Pickleball. Who knew we were going to build 6-court pickleball arrangement? But we're marking the ground. We're going to be moving dirt for that. It's going to be a reality. We're talking about doing these Chapo and Geo and hydro surveys for the aquatic center. We're talking about the truss line trails cut in, the amphitheater that we were surveying and laying out. All those things are things that are in the comprehensive plan that are critical to the future of the park. And what it represents to me is, we're part of the quality of life of the South End. And from 40 acres, you had an impact on a certain part of the population. at 400 acres, we're reaching thousands of people on a weekly basis and changing their quality of life for the better. And then I would just say, just wrapping up, there's two words that resonate with me when I think about what you do in the park and what you do for the community. And it's across all the facilities, it's across all the programs, it's across all the people, it's day in and day out. And those two words are that you care. You care about this place, you care about the people that use it, you care about the people who don't use it, you care about the happy people, the people who are not quite so happy. And we couldn't ask anything more from that. So on behalf of the board, I just want to say thanks to you for 25 incredible years and the foundation you built for the next 25.
I would say nobody ever cared more. This is my fault. We're asleep, but dead serious. Super proud of just everything. Because when I work with so many board members, it's nice to see those original guys who hired way back, that 28-year-old kid chance. So yeah, it's great.
And it's so much fun to be out on the trails, after a storm or whatever, and people are like, wow.
That's not fun.
They should thank these people, please tell them thank you, I can't believe they got things open. And during COVID, when that woman stopped me over at Trustland, she insisted that I bring you donuts, when they threw donuts.
Prepackaged, because it was going.
No, they didn't bring me donuts.
Sorry, the island does seem good.
Yeah.
So do you ever run into the people at Trustland that were so anti what we were doing? Do you ever run into them?
I have not seen,
I mean,
not in a very long time.
it's so bad because this time of year we don't do it over there. We don't have.
Well, I'll tell you one story. So you remember the day that the community had come to a couple public meetings and said, this is the worst thing that's ever going to happen.
Yeah.
And we agreed as a board that we were going to meet with them. We're going to meet in the parking lot, and we're going to walk the trail.
Yeah.
And we showed up there. They were already there, clipboards, and at the ready. And Doug was there waiting, and I showed up and I had my shirt, my Parks and Rec polo shirt. And just before we could cross paths, they were kind of standing over the side. There was a couple that was coming out. There was a car parked in the handicap spot.
Yeah.
And this couple's coming out, double amputee and his spouse, and pushing a baby and a baby jogger. And before I got into the group, she sees my Parks and Rec shirt. She says, are you part of the group that brought these trails here? And I said, well, yeah, we're on the board, and here's our director, and we got staff, and it's a community effort with all these different stakeholders. But yeah, and she said, this 88 trail. She goes, this is the only 88 trail in Island County. She goes, I can tell you for our family, she goes, this changes our life.
Sure.
And you could have heard crickets.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took some wind out of them.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's true. It's a life-changing thing, right?
Well, Tom, when you started, I would have been in high school over here, and I sure as heck enjoyed the parks, running, playing hoops there.
I probably chased you around to
Playing
the
beer.
You're probably one of the good ones.
I might have hit a golf ball, but that was but I think I was one of the good ones. But then I didn't know from there I was going to go to parks, and working at University Rec, Ellensburg, Sela, and then a long time in Snohomish County. I always look back at this. This was the gold standard. And I realized how great I had it, literally right in my backyard. And even Willis Tucker Park, Snohomish County is pretty proud of that. But
Yeah, that's a nice part.
it's a nice park.
Yeah.
This, like the grounds and everything, and the trails are here. They have a nicer office, but I'll be sure. But yeah, hats off to you, and just unbelievable. And I tell all my coworkers in town, like, yeah, if you're up on Whidbey Island, you bring your kids or something, check out community park. You'll dig it. And I also appreciate you speaking your mind and letting everyone know how much you know with your 25 years here and just your knowledge of how things work. And I think it's valuable to us, Park and everybody, to hear your thoughts and stuff. Thank you.
Well, like I tell everyone, you get a little fired up.
What?
But
You care.
I'm doing my job.
You
I'm like,
care.
that's what I explain it to people, especially out, like, you know, I have to make decisions that aren't easy. And I have to bring up things that aren't easy to bring up. So, you know, I never mean to offend, I just.
I wish you'd just say more what's on your mind.
I don't want that.
You know, just let it out.
It's the coach found it. Okay. Well, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Get out of here.
25 years.
Boy, I'm older than.
Are you gonna
Yeah, thank you.
adjourn?
Many years from now.
Oh,
you'll say
yeah,
something like,
we're adjourned at 9:40.
Right